Chapter 341 Hedge Magic. Hun Call Zuar, Call of Valor. At G0LB0, R has been summoned from Somgard. Gods, that crazy man returned. Look at him, all blood and guts. He did it again, didn't he? That crazy man. He's insane. Don't look to him in the eye. Why allowing such a man in town? He clearly enjoys killing. What if he goes berserk on the people? Shut up, woman. This man was hurt by the Hagravens and has a grudge on them. They say he attacks hag covens and kill those Briarheart warriors they make. He is making the Reach a safer place. Are you seriously thinking that way? Well, after the trouble those nasty Forsworn started 3 months ago, all the traders are fearful to come to Markarth, and the prices went up. At least he is teaching the Forsworn their place. The uproar of the people of Markarth was clearly about the man known as the Witch Hunter, a large man carrying a hammer who goes out every morning to hunt down the Forsworn camps around Markarth. This was obviously John. It has been a week since his head concussion was fully healed and he became able to speak and shout again. He still doesn't overdo it that much. Anyway, since that day, John quit from the smelter and took Wolfer's hammer, the champion's cudgel, which he retook from the corpse of Grosh, and started hunting down the small Forsworn camps around the Reach. There's an ear bounty for every Forsworn killed, and many head bounties for known Forsworn leaders and Hagravens. Ear bounty is when a bounty hunter kills a nameless bandit and returns with their ears as proof. Head bounty is when a bounty hunter brings back the head of a known wanted. John was infamous for his daily bounty hunting that seemed to be scaring even the Nords. He always returns covered in blood and carrying a head or two with him, while appearing to be really injured by many arrows sticking on him and a lot of burn marks covering his arms. The truth wasn't completely far from that. John's aim was to gather as many materials as he can get to use magic once again. He had a few ideas on how to remove the vine around his torso, but the damn thing proved to be a true leech. It fed on John's blood and evolved into something absurd and became bound by soul with John. Still, John didn't have the power to command it around only because he was already sealed by the vine. It was very annoying. John almost tried everything the past week to exert enough power to control the vine from the Thursday to the hedge magic, but all proved futile because John's core power is locked down, and it was the key out of this problem. In the end, these annoying vines are just a part of John, exactly like greed. Yet they don't follow John's will because he still hasn't established authority over it. It was a nasty thing to deal with. John advanced through the town and mixed among the crowd until he reached Understone Keep, Markarth's center of power. He showed the bounty paper to the guards, and someone came for him. Krylin, good job today. Feline, the Jarl's housecarl, came personally to greet the court's favorite mercenary. Here are the things. John handed over the ears and the head he has. Let's see. Man, that sure is a lot. Good job. Here is the bounty. Don't spend it all in one place. Thanks, John said and turned away. He was keeping his face and identity hidden to not attract enemies. Krylin is his dragon priest mask name, and he kept his face under a hood. Feline surely has seen him in the Blue Palace, as she was accompanying Jarligmund to Markarth. Anyway, after he got the payment, he headed straight to the Silver Blood Inn. Inside his room, there were many things that can make Nords go insane. John may have lost the ability to cast magic or release energy, but that is not what is magic all about. Magic has other forms like enchanting, alchemy, shouting, meditating, sword singing, chanting, and many other forms. John may be an expert when it comes to casting, shouting, and enchanting, but he is also knowledgeable when it comes to finding absurd ways to make magic. Right now, John was practicing the hedge magic. He was focusing on this sacrificial magic, as of late, and tried to accumulate power to himself by killing enemies. He made a soul-trapping weapon and started practicing on the Forsworn he was hunting. The results were rather disappointing. Sacrificing requires a connection with a higher being that the ritual of sacrifice is dedicated to by exchanging the sacrifice souls that the Daedra desire with power and energy. John had no pact with any higher being that accepts sacrifices. He knows some Deidre on a personal level, but still, Azura made it very clear that she doesn't accept mortal sacrifices. Sheogorath is not the one to do such a boring thing. Verminous seeks suffering so mortal are preferred alive in her book, and Herson is the god patron of the Forsworn. Not too many options here for sacrifice. Other than sacrifice, John discovered a new aptitude growing in him once he broke through the Ebon Blood stage. This aptitude was none other than the blood magic. What is blood magic? It is unstudied magic that gets classified under the hedge magic. The only reason why it is not studied is that it requires talent. In John's case, he developed his blood by breaking through the Ebon Blood stage and awakening that talent. Jenna Firemane, John's grandmother, is a known user of the blood magic as well as some vampires. With a wide variety of uses, the archetypes of the blood magic can be summarized as human body manipulation, vitality manipulation, mind manipulation, marking, curses, and sometimes enchanting. John could only think of how stupid he was to leave his limbs behind in the Briarheart Grove, where he cut them. Using the blood magic on them can lead the Forsworn to him, or worse, put a curse on him. Luckily, he killed all the Hagravens in Alaric's camp. There was one more type of hedge magic that John used rather well. He didn't know a proper name to it, but he called it fate magic. Such as the name, it was an extremely dangerous and a very obscure magic. John used it to escape the Forsworn when he burned the heads of the Hagravens and 3 wraiths of crows appeared. This was not something he fully intended to. He didn't know such a creature would appear from the start, but he used the heads of the Hagravens, a medium of power, to call forth a guardian entity from oblivion. Due to the similarities between Hagravens and the wraiths of crows combined with the will of John, all offered to a fire powered by a soul gem he found at the Hagravens' nest, the fate magic worked out. John can say that fate magic is rather an ironic and a naughty one that can never be fully harnessed or completely understood. It depends on the way of performing a certain ritual combined with the will of the caster and a power source. Its downside is the complete randomity of the results and the chance of backfiring splendidly. The last type of hedge magic John researched was the chanting magic or the singing rituals. Although not as dangerous as the fate magic, the changing magic needs years upon years of understanding. How so? Well, to use the magic is to sing, and to sing one needs a listener. The listener, in that case, is not the higher beings like the original spirits, but on the contrary, it is the normal and the lesser spirits. Known as fairies or fae. Spirits are beings that reached a certain maturity regarding the magical aptitude enough to cause mutation in their souls, evolving them to a different being. For example, a lesser soul being like a tree or an animal went through some fortuitous encounter and gained more power than it should. There's a chance that this power causes an evolution by affecting the soul and upgrading it, causing the creature to gain consciousness and a higher awareness of its own. That awareness is translated in more complicated thoughts that need to be addressed by a language, and it is known as the fairy language, which can be different from fairy to another in many cases. The chanting magic is used to contact the fairies by speaking words they understand and ask them to aid the chanter. John saw that chanting magic twice. Once by Alina when they were healing Joliner's eye, and Alina contacted the spirits of the Eldergleam Sanctuary to give them enough power that can heal Joliner. The second time was with the Hagravens, who kept singing to the evil fae in order to do divination of some sort. John clearly observed the way they sang, or rather screeched with their nasty voices to call forth some sort of energy. In that late night, John summarized all the sorts of the hedge magic he discovered and put theories to. As an arcane theorist, his work was rather scientific and put the hedge magic in a form that the world hasn't seen before. In such a predicament, John discovered a new magic for himself to toy with. The hedge magic contains sacrificial magic, blood magic, fate magic, and chanting magic. The sacrificial magic needs a connection with a higher power that desires sacrifices and willing to exchange it with power. The blood magic needs the ability to cast or enchant, not useful in battle. The fate magic is too risky, and to perform one spell, one needs a ton of preparations beforehand. The chanting magic needs a bond with the spirit as well as understanding its language. John closed the note in front of him with a grim face. He may have put an advanced theory that tops anything in the world regarding the hedge magic based on nothing but observation, but he lacked every requirement to use that magic effectively. Damn it, he was clearly not pleased of his lacking of power, or so he thought. Chapter 342. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. Extra chapter. Every new, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter. 5,000 votes. Extra chapter. 8,000 votes. Another day in the purgatory, John took the hammer, put on the armor, donned the camouflage cloak, prepared the arrows, and checked with greed. Everything was in place. Last thing was the hood over his head and the key to his room. Mr. Krylan. The residents of the opposite room last night said they heard something. The innkeeper came to nag to him again. Again with them. John rolled his eyes. The people staying in the room opposite to his were causing him trouble once again. They seemed to be displeased with staying opposite to him. If you want me out of the room, then prepare one away for me. I'll pay you up. John settled it with money. Even when he was stranded alone, he made money like nothing. No, mister. They left the room. I think you are starting to cause us losing customers. Fine, I'll rent the other room too. John took off a few gold coins and stuffed them in the hand of the man. A hateful place it was. Markarth was the least city John liked in Skyrim. Even Windhelm wasn't that bad. John took off and headed outside the city again. He picked some bounty from the inn on the way out and took the road where it leads him. This time, the contract was around Kolskegger Mine, a gold mine owned by Markarth, and the Silverblood family has no business with, so is not protected by them. It was natural for the Forsworn to attack it by then. John had an understanding of the politics in Markarth and how the hidden waters ran. His target was the Forsworn and their leader. Even though there was no way the sacrifice magic he was studying would pay off, he had nothing else to do other than clashing with the Forsworn. According to what Azura said, his cure to get his power back was in the reach. Reason and logic were not that helpful to translate Azura's words. He needed to find a clue to get rid of that accursed vine. John traveled all the way to the mine and kept watching it from outside. If there are Forsworn inside, then they should be keeping a lockout. To avoid being spotted, John decided to not enter from the front. It was simply impossible, as Kolskegger Mine had only one way to go in or out. John's idea was to walk on the mountain above the mine, using greed. He climbed from the back of the mountain, then stuck greed on the slope above the mine's entrance, and started walking down on the wall of the mountain. It wasn't really that hard when he used greed, and he was a few meters above the entrance in no time. Sure as hell, he heard noises right behind the entrance. People were speaking, and the accent was Reachman. He was sure now. Sneaking a little look, John realized that there were only 4 men stationed on the entrance. Rather sloppy. He kicked the wall of the mountain, then loosened greed for a bit. Using his body's weight, he used greed like a swing to crash through the entrance of the mine while waving the hammer. 3 fell in one go. The 4th wanted to show resistance, but the hammer nailed him down. The men who survived John were rather unlucky. If they died without knowing what hit them, it would have been much better than seeing John crushing the life out of them by breaking their necks. John was now in. He switched from a champion's cudgel to greed and transformed it into a short bow. Holding a few arrows at the same hand as the bow, John was skilled enough to shoot at a fast rate that way. He walked in a mine, avoiding all the traps and the alarms. He met 2 men sitting around and shot 2 arrows in less than a second to their throats. Thud, thud. They fell dead. John sighed. Normal people are so fragile. His level of power is simply enough to make up for his lack of magic, but he is still acting like a cry baby who lost his favorite toy and wants it back. He sighed again and headed forwards. Not too far from his previous stop, John was ambushed by a Forsworn who seemed to have detected John somehow. A fight broke out, and 3 more guys joined up. Not even waiting for them to surround him, John threw greed on one of the Forsworn, and greed acted like a liquid, and completely covered the head of the man, causing it to struggle for air. John was already punching a man to his throat, causing him to suffocate in a critical state that took the man's axe and threw it toward another who avoided it to land on the fourth head, but the third was mutilated by a kick that dislocated his jaw and fell dead. Quadra-kill. Shut up, Shadow. Seriously, you're good at this. Why use magic when you're this good as a warrior? Your martial arts can be even considered one of the highest ranking even in Akavir. Sigh, didn't you see that just now? What? That idiot, he snuck up on me. If I had a magic, Shadow, I'd have killed all those fucks without even coming in this mine. Yep, stay shut. To John, who came from a magicless world, magic was everything he ever hoped for and part of his identity. To lock him from using magic for over 3 months, John was already furious at everything Forsworn and swore an oath of vengeance for all what they did to him, for chasing his brother and killing 9 of Winterhold's finest men, for causing Nefertiti to disappear God knows where, and for simply humiliating him. Every Forsworn blood is to be spilled in John's book by now. Finally, after reaching the end of the cave, John found a central place where the Forsworn main gang was gathered. The place was a mess. Over 11 Forsworn, one of them is a Briarheart. There were people too, women who seemed to have been some villagers kidnapped from the villages outside the mine. By the looks of it, the men were used to labor in the mine, and the women were raped. Typical Forsworn. At least they didn't start a cannibalism feast yet. During the past week, and during his stay in the Briarheart Grove, John has seen many things like that. The Forsworn were savages whose action denied them from the right to even live. Getting rid of them was like pest exterminating to John. He formed greed into a short bow again, and aim took many arrows. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 5 died in a blink of an eye. The remaining ones jumped behind cover or the hostages. By Dagon, he is here already? One of the men shouted. The Forsworn started to make threats and shoot back at John, who also hid behind cover. He wasn't really hiding, but he was thinking. I was being expected, John thought. Something was wrong for both sides. John was expected, but he ambushed them, and they still fell for it despite knowing he'd come. What is going on? John discarded the thoughts amidst confusion and started to fight back the arrows that were targeting him. He took an arrow that was tied with some bones and feathers while its head was dyed with blood. John took the arrowhead near his lips and started muttering words. Ziduvus Krazadarwia Zayax Arkins Niastal. The technique John was using was called the totem arrow. It was literally a homing arrow that can pierce anything. The hedge magic that John used was a mix of chanting magic to the spirits of Nirn and powered by his own blood using the blood magic. To chant words that has a chance to be understood, John used the dragon language. After preparing the arrow, John notched it and twisted the bowstring while pulling to give a curve and loosed. The arrow flew splendidly in an arc and hit the man who spoke just a while ago in his shoulder, pinning him to the wall behind him. The shot was so impossible that it caused the others to lose focus for a second, and John used the chance to kill 2 more. 2 of the remaining 3 ran toward the captives and wanted to kill them to force John out of cover, but what they couldn't foresee was John actually racing them toward the captives and throwing the hammer at one of them while intercepting the other one with a clothesline. See no evil. John mocked the man who fell. You bast. John then blasted the man's head with a stomp. Speak no evil. There is one Forsworn left that can fight, the Briarheart. Briarhearts are not really bright, and sometimes need commands from the ones who are they used to. John saw the process happen a few times in the Briarheart Grove. The first few voices that the Briarheart listens to are the ones he or she obeys. Voices are the key to control those things. The Briarheart was already ordered to fight John. It held a steel sword in a hand and a lightning spell on another. John used greed to pull the champion's cudgel from far away like a chain, then transformed greed into a shield. Fighting a Briarheart in his state was risky. He had no magic and can only use his martial arts. The Briarheart charged at John while shooting lightning spells that John blocked with greed. The Briarheart jumped to strike John from above, but it was a stupid mistake to jump in a fight. John avoided and waved his hammer at the briar heart, smiting him away. The briar heart endured and landed away. The annoying thing with this briar heart was how its heart was hidden under a metal plate nailed into his chest. A shame. If John can snatch the heart, then it would be game over. The briar heart charged again, but John bashed him faster with the greed shield and waved the hammer at the left arm of the briar heart, smashing it in one go. The briar heart was enraged, and it waved its sword at John's arm that held the hammer, but John withdrew it, fast sacrificing the hammer that fell to the ground. John formed greed into two hands palms on his hands. With those oversized hands, John could grab the briar heart's right arm and attack with the other the briar heart's guts. His stomach was opened, but the damn thing refused to die. Taking a page from Shiagaratha's book, John pulled out the intestines of the briar heart with his free hand, then warped them around him, immobilizing it. The body of the briar heart was badly damaged, and it could no longer sustain more injuries, so it stood still. John smiled and clapped with the greed hands on the briar heart's head. Hee, hear no evil. The head was completely turned into mush. John made a satisfied smile and looked at the people behind him, then gave a nod. Are there any more of those? John said. The people were scared shitless, but they shook their heads. You are free to leave, but I advise to follow me out. Not sure what will happen. They nodded. Perfect. John turned around to the last remaining Forsworn, the one pinned from the shoulder by a cave wall. I have some questions. Answer them, and you will die swiftly with your balls intact. Don't answer them, and I will fondle your balls until they become at the size of your head, and will make your lungs drawn on your own blood. Capiche? Outside the mine, a large band of Forsworn was surrounding. Their head was none other than Alaric of Karthspire. You said the Nord entered here? Alaric spoke to a man. Yes, Prince. Elder Nepos had me follow him all the way here. We haven't cornered. Go back to Elder Nepos and thank him, Morven. Thank him for all the information he brings to us from Markarth. We got this, Alaric said, and made all the men point their weapons at the cave. The wait began for John to come out, but an hour has passed. Should we go in there? A man asked. Wait, he has to come, Alaric said. Just as he said so, a few things flew out from the entrance of the mine. They rolled over until they reached Alaric's feet. This, the men gasped. These were the heads of the men who were waiting for that cursed Nord. If not to capture him, then weaken him enough, but it seemed that he prevailed. Not only that, he was inviting them in. Eric was enraged and was about to step in to kill the Nord himself, but his men stopped him. That Nord was a scary opponent, even after he was weakened and was put under the soul shackles of the Briarheart tree. Leave me be. I'll kill him with my hands. Alaric kicked his men away. Be patient, Prince. We will go with you. Formation. Alaric's aide calmed him down and called for a formation to enter the mine. Alaric was in the heart of that formation. No one knew what trap is waiting inside for the John to personally invite them in, but better safe than sorry. Yet, there was no way anyone would be safe from what happens next. John's head was already healed, and a great deal of his power returned to him. His most essential power as a Dragonborn. Why, well, Tor Shul. Chapter 343. The Four Disasters of the Battle of Kolskegger Bridge. Extra chapter. Every new, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. Why, well, Tor Shul. Fire, Inferno, Sun. John's shout echoed once again in the reach. He was saving the shout for this kind of situation. The Forsworn could be in no worse position. Going through a mine tunnel, which went straight in, John standing on the end and shouted the fire breath shout at them. The Forsworn having no way to avoid the destructive force of the Thursdayum in their straight line formation. It was just a spectacle. John's fire breath killed everyone inside the tunnel, rendering them to ash. In the heart of the formation was Alaric. Half of the Forsworn were ahead of him, and the other half was behind him. He was about to step in a cave once John shouted, but his aide was there for him. The man pushed him from harm's way and took the shout head-on in Alaric's stead. No! Ha ha! John's frenzied laugh and Alaric's mournful cry overlapped. John was happy to see those savages burn, and Alaric was heartbroken for his people. Alaric looked at the mine with anger, while holding Bloodskull. He was going to make sure that this Nord never shouts again after this time. The Forsworn knew the fatal weakness of the Thursday its long cooldown duration. If the Nord can shout now, then the Hag's curse was broken, but that Nord should be still weakened. The soul-shackling vines are not anything a mortal can get rid of. Now is the time. Alaric jumped towards the cave, but just an inch away from turning into the tunnel, it happened again. Fuss Aroda. Force, balance, push. Another shout was unleashed just a few seconds after the first. Alaric survived by a hair's width, as the shout's effects stormed through the mine's entrance and attacked the group of Forsworn that was trying to group behind Alaric. Impossible. Alaric was shocked senseless as he fell on his ass while trying to back away. Two shouts at the same minute. No, with only a few seconds apart. That shouldn't be real. Alaric thought he witnessed the impossible when he fought John for the first time. John first shouted Grosh away, then shouted fire at the less hen, but there was considerable time between the shouts. Not a few seconds. Come, all of you. This was not the time to hold back anymore. Alaric needed everyone and everything he got. From the hills around the mine, a horde of Forsworn appeared. They were as large as the horde that came to hunt Wolfer once. This time, they were sure that John is weakened. Their informant in Markarth has found John and was keeping an eye on him. This was the right time to strike the weakened beast, but it seems that the beast was saving up his strength too. This is going to be tough. Alaric has no idea what a corner cat like John can do. He needed to use all the force he has to get done with it and kill that Nord. Both John and Alaric had the same idea in their head. Under Aetherius on Nirn, only one of them can live. Their people are forever enemies, and between them is bad blood that can never be resolved. The Forsworn were all waiting for a single silhouette of John to appear, but before they know it, the man himself was standing in front of the mine's entrance with blood covering him. Shoot everything, Alaric shouted. Arrows, stones, rocks, spears, javelins, flame, frost, lightning, and even poison bombs. A barrage of projectiles and spells targeted John. No one can survive that. Vengarnos. Wind. Unleash. Strike. A third shout echoed in the reach. 3 shouts thus far. A cyclone of wind formed in front of John. It enveloped everything ahead of him. All the arrows, spells, and bombs were swallowed by that cyclone that didn't stand in its place, but advanced towards the Forsworn. Chaos and panic took over. All the spells were negated by the wind element, which can suppress any other element, and all the projectile were deflected by the force of the cyclone. The cyclone carved a bloody line in the lines of the Forsworn, but not only that, all the projectiles that targeted John started flying randomly along with people and limbs. It was a disaster. A man can cause a tornado to happen. What are the chances against such a thing? The Forsworn knew this was not the time to retreat. Attack before he shouts. Someone cried. The Forsworn couldn't wait any longer. A few Briarheart warriors led the charge at John, but he was waiting for them with a grin. He was already preparing for the next shout. Gol Vuz Motad. Earth, Nirn, quake. The chargers heard the words, and so did Nirn itself. A sense of disaster struck everything around John, and the creatures started to escape. All the birds in a mile around John abandoned their nest and escaped away. The Forsworn were on the wrong end of the cannon and the center of the disaster. The earth beneath their feet shook. No, it moved like water. It was an earthquake, a small scale but a real one. Stalagmites came from the ground and skewered the unlucky ones. The earth started to swallow and entomb others. The luckiest ones fell on the ground and lost the sense of the world, enduring the weight of their comrades falling on them. The shouts from a while ago were nothing compared to this earthquake shout and the cyclone. These were disasters. An idea came into the head of one of the Forsworn, and it spread like a plague. Run, run. Despite the turmoil, he stood up and ran away, yet failing to find a proper foothold. He would fall only to stand up again and repeat. No, 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 you're not running. John didn't like what he saw. The mayhem can't end here. He wasn't satisfied yet. For a month, he was waiting for the day when the Forsworn come to find him. He'd always go out and wreak havoc trying to kill as many as he can while looking for a clue, but this is not enough yet. The few hundred Forsworn ahead of him are not enough to satisfy his bloodlust. The past month, he meditated very hard, not to cultivate essence energy, but to prepare for when he can use the Thursday once again. He created a few new shouts by all the knowledge he accumulated all those years. He was still not done. Another shout was on the tip of his tongue. Strun ba qo. Storm, wrath, lightning. The Forsworn heard one more shout, and their hearts sank. The sky above them darkened, and the clouds moved in a very weird motion. Rumble, rumble, rain. This was just too much already. First was the wind, second was the earth, and now the sky itself pouring lightning on them. Crackle, rumble, crackle. No, help, Prince, help us. The Forsworn kept retreating and dying. Alaric was being dragged by his men and saw how the scene unfold. He was crying tears of blood for the people that were getting killed. It was too much. As the leader of his people, this was too much to bear. Unforgivable. Nord, the gods won't let have peace for this. John, who was watching the scene, was a wide, sadistic smile, heard Alaric. My name is John Dare. Remember it, as it is the name of the man who will eradicate your kind. John replied at the faraway Alaric. The men dragging Alaric away reached the road and started to cross the Karth River to escape from John. Alaric was reluctant to withdraw, but he had no choice. The horde of hundreds that came after John got ravaged by him alone. A single man putting down an army with his voice. Who could stop that? Alaric now lost 2 hordes to John. One at the day John was captured, and he lost 80% of his men going after John here in Kolskegger Crossing. The lightning from the sky kept hunting down the men on a slow rate, but kept eating away their morale like a black hole. Still, John was not satisfied. He wanted Alaric. John chased after the retreating remnants of the Forsworn horde as they were crossing the bridge, and a demonic idea came to his mind. A shout that he learned from his mother Hilda, the shout his clansmen learned. Lam Rin Kron. Water, wave, tide. The world rumbled once again. This time it was not the wind, not the earth or the lightning of the sky. This time it was the water, the very river, the water under the bridge no one ever thought to face. Karth River moved as if it was a living being and rose for the call of John. The water retreated back for a short, while then charged forward at the bridge in a sight that no one ever saw. The 4th disaster struck. The old stone bridge was washed clean. All the Forsworn that were running for their lives got annihilated. Not entirely every Forsworn. The few that survived were clinging to life on the bank of the river. Alaric miraculously survived for the 6th time this day. The damn cockroach. John was stupefied of the heavenly luck that Forsworn possessed. He was about to step forward, but he felt something and halted his steps. Alaric dragged his body up and saw John on the other side of the river, standing there looking at him. Rain, rain. The blowing of the cold wind, the thudding of the falling rocks, the crackling of the storm and dripping of the raindrops, the flowing of the river. The very world itself started to scare Alaric. He was terrified. The one he was up against is not the one he faced before. He thought by killing that Nord called John, he could be qualified to kill the enemy of his people, Ulfric Stormcloak. But just now, Alaric realized that Ulfric is not even a threat compared to the dragon whose reverse scale was touched. There is one thing he can do. Turn his tail and run. There is no surviving for him and his people if they are found. Run. He shouted to his body, and it did follow his will. He ran without looking back. On the other side of the river, John was still frozen. You fucking idiot. Shadow was cursing at him, yet he had no power to even reply in his mind. The vines around his body assaulted him with all its might. John used his essence energy to stimulate his Thursday and be able to shout faster than even his usual. This was a mistake. Asterisk puke. Star. John, who exhausted himself, started puking blood and fell on the ground powerlessly while holding his guts in pain. He finally got a taste of the power he used to wield before, but his reckless action backfired on him. He will survive, but he needs time to recover. No, he needs a real cure for this thing around him. He always rejected a certain solution in his mind, but this was unbearable. He needs his power back, and whatever the cost, he will do it. John dragged his body up and started walking back to Markarth, where things should have gone in a certain way a long time ago. Still, one thing was clear. The whole Reach heard those shouts, and only one person in Skyrim under High Hrothgar can shout like that. John Dare's voice reached not only the Reach, but echoed around Skyrim. The Battle of Kolskager Bridge and the 4 disasters that John conjured are merely the ringing bell marking the beginning of the chaos. Chapter 344, Aftermath. An extra sponsor by G0LB0R. Praise the Sun. The Battle of Kolskager Bridge, also known as the Battle of Forsworn John Dare, had an after effect that left the Reach speechless for 3 days. John Dare, the northern Thane who mysteriously appeared in Markarth during the chaos 3 months ago and disappeared presumed dead, has made quite the shocking absurdity. The Tongue of Thunder, the 4 Calamities, the Dragon of Winterhold, as well as many nicknames started to spread around for John. He was revered as a mighty Nord whose voice transcended sense. The Nord bard sang his name for 3 whole days in Markarth, and the Jarl started investigating what happened. Sure enough, the missing Thane preferred to stay missing, and no one found a trace of him after he left Kolskager Mine. The ones who spread the tale of the battles were, of course, the hostage villagers of Kolskager. John Dare has declared his identity while he was shouting the Forsworn to their demise. Knowing John Dare's personality, the influential people knew exactly that John Dare is the person who would use the Thursday Elm without holding back, even in front of the High King of Skyrim. But to think that he is waging war on the Forsworn. The people couldn't understand how deep the grudge between the Forsworn and John was for him to declare that he will eradicate the Forsworn. The Nords and the Reachmen never got along anyway, but the tension between the two people started to rise in Markarth. The Reachmen living in Markarth, who had nothing to do with their brethren of the Forsworn, still felt bad about the coming days. They were always treated horribly by the Nords, and the Forsworn faction appeared because of this treatment. Still, the man in the center of this uproar remained hidden God knows where. Away from Markarth in a remote village, Jonrad and Tyr Firemane sat in a traveler's inn listening to the stories. At least the kid is doing good, Tyr whispered to Jonrad. John raised his head, looking around from under his hood, and sighed. I don't know what, if he's fine or not. He said he would eradicate the Forsworn. That doesn't sound like fine to me. Jonrad said, and kept thinking. What do you think the reason is then? They probably, I don't know. Jonrad tried to dismiss the ideas in his head. You think they hurt him? Tyr asked. Jonrad nodded and replied. Why do you think he is not contacting us? Something is weighting him down, or maybe he lost the ability to contact us. We know at some point that he was captured and escaped after 2 months. 2 months is not that much, but that made John Hill be this angry. The tale about the battle that he conjured the 4 calamities of nature by his voice was something really extreme. Jonrad analyzed. Yeah, he could just kill a few of them and teleport away with magic. Not to take them on in such a way. But still, 4 calamities is really something. Can you do anything like that? Me? I don't think I can do what he did, but I can at least burn them off the face of Nirn. So, where do you think we can find him now? Markarth is an option, but after such incident, John Hill will find a place to hide really well. I expect him at least to do that. He will focus on recovering and then come out to confront the Forsworn in their stronghold. We can look for him now and leave an eye on the Forsworn stronghold. There's only you and me, though. As Tyr said so, Jonrad's eyes froze for a second, and he closed them, then focused on his head and started muttering some words. Tyr acted natural and waited for Jonrad to finish. This was a telepathic call, probably from Nurina. Jonrad opened his eyes. Hilda has arrived at Winterhold, and Alina has departed to the Reach with a small militia. Jonrad said, "Didn't we tell her to stay put? Stay put and leave John Hill to rot in the Reach for 3 months? I don't think a child like Alina will do things like that. Also, that smug Sigurd and sister Nerina are planning to come too after they heard that John is waging a war on the Forsworn. Well, we are not short on men anymore," Tyr said and drank his mead. 2 days ago in Winterhold, Alina was donned in her Stalrim gear, the Death Brand armor, and carried her 2 blades, Blood Scythe and Solrinder. "Mother, please take care of Joel for me." She turned around to face Hilda, who helped her put on the armor. Hilda smiled faintly and nodded. "You too. Take care of yourself and bring that foolish son of mine home." "Yes, I will," Alina said and looked around. There were many people present in the room: Jenna Firemane, Nerina, Vladimir, Hafthor, and the rest of the Firemans, and the Moonblades who could come to aid Winterhold. Many of John's cousins and hers insisted that they would follow Alina to the Reach. There was also Lon Mosseter, the man who lent Alina the royal seal of royal family of House Lalu, as well as the heads of the departments. This was all in John's house. Alina spoke to them, and then excused herself and went inside the main bedroom to see Jelinar. The pale elf girl was even paler and lost a lot of her weight. Beside her bed, there was Master Nurelian, who was making her drink some potion. "Joel! Alina!" They called for each other, but to Alina's determined tone, Jelinar's tone was weak and barely hearable. "I'll go and drag him home," Alina said. Jelinar smiled and nodded. "Be safe." Alina smiled and kissed Jelinar on the head. She was about to say something, but she heard an uproar from outside the room. She hurriedly went outside the room to see what is happening, only to find Nurina telling the people around her something, and they are all opening their mouth from shock. Just as she asked what is going on, what she heard next was the best news she heard of in 3 months. John was appeared, had an epic battle with the Forsworn, and sent them defeated. He then declared war on them. Alina's face hardened. "We can't dally. The Empire may try to stop us at this rate." Alina spoke and looked at Vladimir. "Contact Wolfer and Ongium, tell them to do whatever they are doing fast. We need to mobilize our people through the Pale right now. John needs an army." Vladimir nodded, then held a telepathy scroll and talked with Wolfer. Alina turned around to the rest. "The situation has escalated at this rate. We need some of you in Whiterun and Rorikstead to secure the supply lines. I believe you all understand the plan. The only change we are doing is that we are moving fast." "Yes." Alina went out of the house, followed by those who were coming with her. She rode Lochther and took off to the camp. All the forces were mounted and waiting. John has made sure to mass-produce flame Atronak horse scrolls for a situation like this. All of the Dare Dragoons are essentially Atronak riders, and the force Alina is taking has borrowed the equipment from the Dare Dragoons. To not be confused with dragons, Dragoons are cavalrymen but with a cooler name. The 400 troopers were all ready and marched from Winterhold to Neo Sarthal with haste. Upon arrival, Alina received a telepathy call from Vladimir. "Alina, you are good to go. Wolfer has returned from Dawnstar, but he will cause a political problem." "Oh, what problem?" "You see, it started like this. The night before Alina's departure, the scene north to Dawnstar, Wolfer and Ongium were on one of the cruiser ships, the Hasty Bee, the fastest ship in the fleet. They were discussing the operation they were about to start, while using their auras to observe Dawnstar. "It is almost the time. Let's move." Ongium gave the order. As someone who was raised in Dawnstar, he was well aware of all the in and outs of the town. He was also aware of the annoying personality of Jarl, Skald the Elder, and how an old brat he can be. This operation, he suggested, was to allow the forces of the company to move across the Pale without anyone hindering them from the Jarl's side. Jarl Skald always had a low opinion of John and didn't like how he didn't support Ulfric despite being a key figure in not only one of the old holds, but the oldest of all holds. He also detested the Dare Dragon Company from pulling the rug from under Dawnstar in business. Reasons varied, but Skald's action was always that of a brat, no matter how elder he became. Shutting the door in the face of Winterhold after John's disappearance was the last nail in the coffin. The company needed to take action. Real action. As the Hasty Bee approached the docks of Dawnstar, Ongium and Wolfer made sure that no sound or light leaked from the ship. The moons were not that bright, which was for their advantage, and the guards seemed lax. Just as the ship was too close to be hidden, the alarm bells rang. Full speed ahead, Ongium shouted, and the engine of the ship roared in excitement. In just mere seconds, the ship's metal support frame was crushing to the pier. We have 10 minutes. Move, move, move. Secure the dock's chains. Blow up the dock's chains. The ship's small cannons aimed at the unmanned defenses. The main front cannon was aimed at the wall around Jarl's longhouse. Bang, bang, bang. Explosions echoed in the night in Dawnstar, and people started running and screaming. Wolfer, our turn. Ongium and Wolfer, commanding 20 elite warriors from the company, jumped off the ship and conjured flame horse Atronax. They charged like hell runners to the Jarl's longhouse. Bang! The front wall of the longhouse was blown off as soon as the Magica ball landed. The guards of the longhouse were stormed by the 20 strongmen, and no resistance was offered due to them being stunned by the explosion. What is that? Who in Oblivion would do? Who are you? An elderly man holding a sword with a few guard around him, and some women hiding behind him. Jarl Skald, you have violated the code of honor and did some terrible deeds to Winterhold. The Dare Dragon Company is not a thing the likes of you can play tricks on. Ongium spoke as he walked up. No, you traitor. Jarl Skald saw Ongium and his face paled. You are not blocking the roads for our people again. We are here to make sure of that and to take insurance with us. Wolfer said as the men aimed their weapons at Skald's guards. That was enough for 2 agents of Team Zero to sneak around and grab the package. We are done. One of the agents spoke. Good, let's leave. The package was a girl in her mid-20s. She was looking around with a pale face. No, you. Hands off her. Jarl Skald was enraged, but he was completely outnumbered in his own house, seeing this woman being taken away. If you don't open the roads by the morning, we will return her to you, piece by piece. Wolfer said retreated with the men. Ongium followed as the last man and disappeared behind the rubble and smoke. A minute later, the Hasty Bee was sailing out of the Dawnstar while spewing flames at any ship that dared to chase. Ongium and Wolfer stood beside each other. Ongium gave a sigh and patted Wolfer's shoulder. The dawn was already here. Now the troopers can move through the Pale. Chapter 345, A Deal with the Devil. Thanks to Colonel Kaido for donating. Blue flames. Cold blue flames. So cold that it makes the bone ache. Not the warm golden flame, but a cruel and cold one. John looked at the spell that he evoked. It was the only thing he can use, the only magic that he can evoke. It wasn't a normal experience. He had to go out and look for more Forsworn in the Reach, sacrifice them, and gain such power. He finally got to use the sacrifice magic, and the result was this great. Of course, he had to have a pact with the Daedric Prince. What he gained was this cold blue flame, a flame that would obliterate the mortals and ravage their essence. The cold flames of the 4th Sinus of Takabar, a pocket realm in Oblivion adopted by Cold Harbor where the blue cold flames run wild. It was beautiful in every way John can ever think of. Feeling such a blue cold flame would make people appreciate the blessing of the golden warm flame. The ash, supposedly gray in color, became snow white blue hint of glow. John had to give something for this power, to get a part of his own corrupted, just like how Vermina corrupted Alina's eyes. His guardian dragon blessing was now corrupted too. This is the power granted to you by the Lord, mortal. Be thankful. A nasty voice interrupted John's thoughts. Shut the fuck up, Zykiel. John replied harshly at his black and red-skinned companion, with 2 horns who he barely endured the presence of. A Draymora from Oblivion is not the best companion one can ask for. That Draymora was responsible for holding the soul sigil stone. an artifact that helps John fulfill his pact with the Daedra. Hurry up and find more, mortal. These are just 10 mortals you killed. Summon me once again when there is more prey. Ha ha ha. The Draymore had disappeared with a burst of disgusting laughter. John sighed in his heart, and Carried looked at the mace in his hand. It took him 4 days, and he finally made it. He can use what he used to have, but he can use magic once again. It all happened last night. Last night, Markarth, the abandoned house. Hey, I am bored. Are you not bored yet? Oh, if it was Shiagarath, things would have been much different, you know? My intestines and all would be flying around and put back repeatedly. Oh, fine, if you're going to play hard to get then make a move. I mean, you are the Lord of Domination, and you can't even play Monopoly? I'm ashamed for you. Oh, you know I can do this all day, right? Mortal. Oh, he finally speaks. Enough with your pity games. Surround yourself now. Based on what exactly? You and I both know how this game works, and I still have something I want your help with. I caught that friend back there for your sake. I assume letting him complete the rite will be very pleasing for both of you to see. Isn't that right, Logrolf? Muffled groans. See, Logrolf agrees. So that's it? That's your game? Oh, yes. I help you, you help me. Everyone walks away happily, except for Logrolf. He doesn't seem like walking away anytime soon. Ha ha. So you were fooling around my altar for 3 days just to get to this point? Oh, fooling around? You may be right. At least you got to enjoy it. Huh. Mortal, you're acting so bold. I'm now trying to pick which one would be better to break, you or Logrolf. Oh, as far as I am concerned, all you can do is some light and sound effects. That's if you're not going to call a champion of yours to get rid of me. Now, shall we talk business? Humph. What do you want, mortal? Oh, let's see. I'm sure you already know who I am judging by how you Daedric princes love to wager on us petty mortals doing things for you. Yes, I am aware. You are a laborer of Azurus. Oh, well, you are right, and as if you may have known, I have faced some bad luck lately. You see this vine growing on my body? I want to get rid of it, but I can't. Well, I'll be needing the help of a mighty Daedra. Is that it? I can help you, but I won't. Oh, what? Why? You mortals and your pea-brains. Azura gave you a task to cure yourself. Why come to me? Oh, I thought. You thought you could make a deal? Who do you think I am? Clavicus Vile? Oh, damn it. Things seem to have gone out of John's expectations. Even with a bargaining chip like his, the Daedric prince he is communing with refused to help him. John looked at the hateful altar in front of him with hate. It has been 3 days since he returned from the Battle of Kolskegger Bridge, and he was trying to secure a way out of these vines by any and all means. His best shot was with the powerful Daedra princes. His choices are limited to 2 Daedra, and they are more horrible than the other one. It was either the Mistress of Decay, the Devourer of the Dead, and the Spirit Daedra, the one known as Namara, or the King of the Prince of Schemes, and the Harvester of Souls, the one known as Molagbal. Between the Lady of Cannibalism and the Lord of Strife, John had to choose the later for reasons varied, but not important anymore. It seems that Molagbal is not helping. But for you to bring me the one who desecrated my altar, I guess I should reward you. John rolled up his eyes. I don't need your mace. Too eye-catchy. John completely shut off Molagbal. He knew the reward of this quest already and knew many things about Molagbal himself. The Daedra Prince loves schemes and backstabbing as well as domination, but what is not known is that Molagbal loves being defied and fought against. Those who surrender too easily are of not entertaining anymore. Still, Molagbal had something that John desired. Really? Then what if I tell you that I can help you in a way? You see, I can give you a mean to use magic once again. Molagbal didn't hide the malice in his tone. John narrowed his eyes and looked at the dark demonic altar in front of him. I am listening. Simply use my mace in a way that, let's say, different than its real purpose. My mace can trap souls. Rather than sending them in pity black soul gems, you can use a different way to send those souls directly to me, and I will grant you a set of spells you can use. Something picked by a Daedric prince. Oh, Molagbal's offer ended here. John kept thinking for a few seconds. And what about the parts you were not telling me? Oh, you left a lot of blanks in that agreement. Anyone would have been fooled, but not me. You want me to use a mean I don't know about to send souls directly to you and get a power I don't understand. Sounds like the recipe of disaster itself. Don't you agree, Logrolf? Oot, ma, us, cummy loose. See, even Logrolf agrees. John detected where Molag Ball's scheme is. Umph, mortal, you are annoying. Take the mace, bring me souls, gain power. Pity mortals don't get to negotiate. Oh, that's so? Surprisingly, I agree. Still, not only you offer me your mace, but also power. I didn't see that one coming, to be honest. I will agree to the offer if you answer this one. John said, look to the altar that was shaped like Molag Ball's head. Why help me this much? That's what you want to know? Fine. Let's say that Shiagarath and Vermina have put a huge bet on you completing your labors. I saw those two doing so, and I did like them. Malakath and Dagon are betting against you, so it would worth it to see them losing splendidly. Oh, wait. I understand why Dagon is betting against me, but Malakath? Well. Looks like the orcs are going to need a fifth Ursinium. Is there a free place in Cold Harbor? Ha ha. Nice one. So you take my deal, mortal? Oh, just make it more appealing. Fine, here's the deal. For every soul you damn to my realm, Cold Harbor, I will give you enough magic power by the blessing I shall grant you. 10 souls, and I will give you a magic spell you can use, 100 souls, and I will give you another spell of much use to a man of your talent, 1,000 souls, and you will gain power very befitting of you. Those 3 powers are the only things I will grant you beside my mace. Oh, and how will I send the souls to you? That won't be a problem you need to worry about, mortal. John became silent for some time. Dealing with Molag Ball is no ordinary matter. A pact may happen, but there is some scheme being brewed too. Something John can't foresee. What about this vine around me? Will I be able to get rid of it? That's Azura's labor, mortal. I can't interfere. Oh, TSK. I just need to figure out what she meant that the cure is in the reach. Is that what she said? She said, heal as soon as you can. The secret lies in the reach, no place else. By blood, by curse, and by sacrifice, you shall recover. Oh, Azura and her way of speaking, hateful as ever. Oh. Shouldn't you Daedric princes be high and mighty when you talk to us puny little weak, pathetic mortals? As much as it pleases me that you admit it, you need to be one bored Daedric prince to talk that way. Only the twilight rose of vanity uses such a way in speaking, thinking high and mighty of herself. Oh, I thought she is one of the good guys. Good guys. Huh. Ha. That's a new one. Azura of all Daedra? She'd curse an entire race on a whim, raise the sea in a fit of anger, chalk the life out of you puny mortals once she was really enraged. You don't know what you were dealing with, mortal. I may be honest in my cause, but there are worse rulers than I. Much more. Oh, fine. Do you have any idea how my labor worked? Ha. Were you listening at all, mortal? Your labor is simple, and you were rather doing it splendidly well without even noticing. By blood, by curse, by sacrifice. That's your answer. Oh, John tilted his head. Isn't that the hedge magic? Error. You mortals are stupid. Azura wants you to shed blood, to place curse, and to sacrifice your enemies in the reach. Azura is offended for your sake, mortal. Molag Ball quieted for a second, then spoke again. Azura wants destruction. Chapter 346, Unusual Friendship. Sorry for being late. A really hot day in Ramadan. 40C, 104F, and it keeps getting worse. In today's chapter is a bit of a spin-off. Brain is overheating. Bash, thud. Screams. No, please. Mercy. Say good boy. Bash, thud. Phew, that was refreshing. John stretched his body up and took a breath after whipping the blood off his face with his sleeve. He was surely working hard. He looked around him with satisfaction and nodded to himself. Today's harvest was bountiful. Last night, he stalked some forsworn to a cave and waited until all the cave dwellers gathered. He then raided the camp this morning with his new companion and killed over 24 sworn with the mace of Molag Bal. The bodies were all piled around him. That mace is also known as the vampire's mace and has the ability to trap souls, recover fatigue, and absorb magicka. Mortal, you missed one. A voice so nasty that it felt like its owner had a broken radio for a throat called for him. John's good mood always gets ruined when he hears that voice. He can't get used to it no matter what. Zykel, you son of a bitch, clear your damn throat before you talk. John turned to the Dremora following him and cussed right away. Zykel's voice was just like any other Dremora, so it was John who unintentionally gets goosebumps from the tone itself. Dremora are the equivalent of demons, red and black-skinned with horns and a deep, unexplainable grudge against mortals. Spare me your nonsense, mortal. Take this one. Zykel indifferently replied at John and threw the forsworn boy that he caught. You retarded Deidre. When was the last time you used your brain? John looked at the boy and sighed. He waved the mace and killed him. I needed that boy alive so we can follow him to another camp when he gets away. Really? That's your reaction? Mortal, don't test my patience. Just go look for them the way you normally do. John glared at the Dremora with contempt. Never he thought that the Dremora are this stupid. Well, maybe because Zykel was not a high-ranked Dremora. He always blows John's cover and had a thing for charging head-on without thinking. Normally, John would conjure Dremora to fight for him in a direct fight, but he never tried those sons of bitches in stealthy combat before. They completely suck if Zykel was not a half-witted retard among his kind. Still, he had his uses. Molag Bal assigned Zykel randomly for John when he granted his blessing. The blessing of Molag Bal never did John ever think of having such a thing. It had only one purpose, and that was corruption. Molag Bal did not mention this part to John intentionally, but it pissed John off right away. John had the physique of a fire mane blessed by the guardian dragon that grants the ashen flames, the flames that John and his father can use to buff their normal fire magic to an unimaginable degree. The blessing of Bal simply interfered with the blessing of the guardian dragon and changed the white ashen flame of incineration to the blue cold flame of essence drain. John didn't want to admit it, but the cold flame suited him better. Once he killed 10 forsworn and granted their souls to Molag Bal, this cold flame was bestowed on him. He can now cast his fire magic only in the form of blue cold flames. This was the first part of the blessing that can be acquired by sacrificing 10 souls. When a sacrifice reaches 100 souls, another magic will be granted to John, and the same with 1,000 souls. Still, how can John use any of that? Wasn't he supposed to have his magicka locked by the damn vine leeching around him? Here where Zykel comes in. Zykel was tasked by Molag Bal to carry an artifact from Oblivion called the Soul Sigil Stone. That sigil stone is something produced by Daedric magic be used for many things, such as opening gates from Oblivion to the mortal realm Mundus, a medium to use magic, and can replace soul gems for enchanting. This soul sigil stone has the function to absorb the souls and deliver them to Molag Bal, as well as share some of these souls' essence with John. Using that essence, John can use the magic Molag Bal bestowed on him. So, horns for brains, how many souls did we collect so far? 43. Too slow, mortal. It has been 2 days already. What the fuck do you want me to do? If you just shut up and let me do my work, I would have found another camp by now. Huh. Blaming me for your weird taste now, mortal? Who said you have to be picky with your prey? Just kill anyone and finish the job already. I can't stand you. Weak, pathetic creatures. Do you want to die? Huh. The likes of you don't even dare to scratch me. The mighty Zykel of Puff. John slammed Zykel on the back of his head with a mace. Zykel died immediately, and his body was taken back to Oblivion. Dare's my fucking surname, you noisy fucker. John started massaging his temples. Listening to the ranting Dremora all day made his head ache. Well, killing Zykel is not possible anyway. He is a Daedric creature, which means he isn't immortal. Most of the creatures of Oblivion work this way. Wherever they get killed, They resurrect back again in their realm of origin by a substance called the chaotic Seracia, and that goes from the Dremora to the Atronak to all other Daedric creatures. The reason for this is that the Daedric creatures have no Enuic animus, soul, but have a different version called the Vistage. Speaking of Vistage, this is the fate that Jon bestowed on the Forsworn. The reason why Jon refused to target any people other than the Forsworn, such as bandits, was because of what happens to those who get claimed by Molag Bal. That Daedra prince is also called the Harvester of Souls for a reason. In his realm of Cold Harbor, there are beings called the Soul Shriven. These are mortals whose souls got claimed by Molag Bal, and he literally exchanged their souls with Vistage, which enables them to form bodies in his realm and become eternal will-less slaves, but they're not native to Oblivion. So the body of a Soul Shriven is an imitation of the body worn in life, suffering rapid wear and decay until it dies, for its vestige only forms a body once again, over and over, like a Daedra. Their appearance is shocking too: pale skin, white eyes, hairless and feeble. The Soul Shriven experience nothing but labor and torment until they are rendered feral with minds too broken to work. This is a true existing version of hell, and Jon was the judge, jury, and executioner of Sen people there. Still, he didn't feel sorry for anyone he sent there so far. The next day, Jon summoned Zykel by the method Molag Bal left him with. "Mortal, you won't get away with that," Zykel shouted, and waved his greatsword at Jon the moment he was summoned. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Jon simply kicked Zykel's leg, causing him to lose balance and fall on his face. More tail! As Zykel was about to lash in another fit of rage, Jon stomped on his head, causing him to black out. It took Zykel a few minutes to wake up again, only to find Jon has strapped him clean of his armor and weapons, as well as the Soul Sigil Stone, all after tying him up to a tree. Unable to control his anger anymore, Zykel was about to blow up from anger and started cursing. Jon ignored the raging Dremora and kept inspecting the Sigil Stone with interest. This was not a normal Sigil Stone, it was something much more valuable. Sigil stones valued in quality and shapes, but this one could be said as unique. Jon can tell as Nurina has a few Sigil stones that she extorted out of some Daedra creatures, and she considers them very valuable and keeps them hidden even from Jon. He could tell that Nurina would move mountains for that Sigil stone he took from Zykel. He sighed in his heart and thought of getting a few Sigil stones of his own one day to study them. He really wanted to see how the Daedric magic made such artifacts. They were very similar to his Magica reactors in some sense. He put the Sigil stone back carefully and started to inspect Zykel's gear. It wasn't the Daedric gear he knew from the game or any sort of magic items. They were all very sturdy pieces that would fetch quite the price around Tamriel. The Daedric craftsmanship is always seen as the best despite its diabolical fashion. All right, horns of brains, we had our fun. Ready for today's work? Ready. Ready? Mortal, I swear on the name of Lord Molag Bal, you will shut up or I'll hit you. Garage. Bash. Jon punched Zykel in the face before cutting him loose and returning his things to him. Try anything funny, and next time you will deal with Lord Molag Bal of yours. I am the keeper of his mace, so you get to shove your mortal immortal act up your ass. Mort. Jon raised the mace as Zykel was about to lash out again, but the later held his tongue immediately. Good. You and I will be great friends right away. First rule, friends don't talk. Gore. Or growl. Good boy. And that's how it started, a friendship story between a human and a Dremora based on the noble ethics of shutting the fuck up. Too bad it was short-lived. Jon had to kill Zykel once again by the end of the day for talking during stealth. Chapter 347, 100 Kills. Jon's POV returns again. It feels so good to be back at the mind of my homicidally main character. For how long has it been since I thought so deep in myself? Or maybe I was just thinking about myself all along without realizing. Funny, I never thought that one day I will indiscriminately kill people like that. I always had this rule with bandits. They leech on people like vermin, so they should be treated like vermin, stripped away from their humanity and put to the sword. It was the best course of action for everyone. But what I'm facing this time was something I preferred not to think too much about. Still, when I am alone with nothing to divert my poisonous thoughts, my mind comes to me and I start thinking. Was it really all right? Mass murder. Genocide. Condemning them to a literal hell. Just because of what? 2 months of captivity, a foot, and a couple of fingers. I can just fix all that and move on. Really, they won't even come after me if I packed my shit and walked away. Still, I wasn't able to do so. Something about this whole mess wanted to make sense of itself, and it drove me mad. I can't help it anymore. Doing things like that was wrong. Just wrong. It won't help me at all. All I needed is to kill one man, remove the curse vine, and do whatever it is I usually do. Ironically, the way to do that is to kill more of those people so that I can amass enough power. Here I'm trying to make sense of killing by more killing. I'm sick of it, yet it is all that I need to do in the end. More killing. And here my number 99 victim, just lying in his blood, forfeiting his life to my cause, being devoured by blue flames and running around as if it was burning him. It actually was. It was leaving white burn marks rather than black, as if it would make me feel any better. Making sense of killing by more killing is just stupid. Funny, I'm getting cold feet, just one victim away from gaining more power. One more kill, mortal. Yeah, still, I had to kill them and use their souls as means to an end. Now that I put it this way, feels like I'm the bad guy in the end. How did it all start? I mean, those reach men. Why do they have to be so stubborn about sharing the reach with the Nords? Fuck who sits on the throne. Life should never be the price for pride. The deadliest of all sins. Huh, look who's talking. Me, the sinner of pride. I call myself dare because I don't stand my pride being dared. But I know better, it is just a facade for my little weak self to hide behind. I don't know a better way to deal with this world than just acting high and mighty. Despite knowing, though, I don't get why the Forsworn are so prideful despite being nothing but savages. They could have settled with Nords, grew their influence from being some simple minority to a potential ruling faction, and ride the law. But in the end, it is a racial conflict that can't be resolved even if we Nords killed the heads of all Forsworn. But how to resolve something with such a scale? How to put down an entity as large as the Forsworn? They are many, spread around, unending. Even if I killed 1,000, I won't even scratch the surface. I already annihilated Alaric's army twice, and that surely was more than 1,000. Just what would it take? As I know, killing the king doesn't end the war. In my past life, I read that thing about chess. Not all pieces are what they are: the king, the queen, and the pawns. Why, when all the pawns die, the game does not end despite it being realistic, and why when the king die the game is over despite being unrealistic. A nation can't survive without its army, but can survive without its king. Another one will rise anyway. That's when the meaning of the chess pieces becomes clearer. The pawn is the weakest, but has a lot of potential. The queen is the strongest, and so on. All the pieces represent potential and resources, but the king represents what is really essential. What nothing can survive without. Hope, future time. Take those away from a nation, and you utterly destroyed it. You know what, Zykiel? You're a better listener than I thought you would be. You're allowed to talk, by the way. So, mortal, does this mean you're not killing them, or you're going to kill them? I don't know. Power for souls, life for death. I don't think I will wipe them out if that's what you're asking about. They will make sure that their future goes on and survives. And how is that? Simple. They know that they're base in Karthspire. They know that I'm coming one day. They must have migrated all their children away and brought reinforcements. Children. That's what you mortals consider future. Yeah, I think it is different for you, Deidre. You don't have a future to speak of. Huh? What are you talking about, mortal? We are eternal. We may have learned fear and our thoughts evolve, but we are unending. We are the perfect beings to serve our Lord. Unlike your kind, we are not flawed. Zykiel said, while puffing his chest. Is that so? I couldn't help but smile. I think I pity your kind now. Pity? Huh? By a mortal? Yes. Your kind is eternally doomed in servitude. That's what we desire. Is that really true? Do you even desire anything? You're created and programmed to do a set of tasks that the Daedric princes give you. You are the perfect servants. You are eternal. You don't need to be fed or cared for. You can just be used without wearing off, and when you do, you get resurrected over and over again. Your kind may be eternal, but doesn't have life. By that, you don't have future, you don't have hope, you don't have freedom. You're just an NPC in my opinion, and I think your ego itself may not be real. Just another thing granted to you by your Creator. And may God have mercy on those who are forever the slaves. Mortal, you really say interesting stuff that I don't fully comprehend. I'm not sure what it all meant, but I'm sure they were all said to make you feel better about yourself. I can't argue with that, but I feel really better about myself now that I've said all that. I hope you feel worse, but do you even feel? Mortal, at least I can do that. Truly? Then let's put it to the test. When was the last time you felt joy? Not long ago, about 50 years ago, we were chasing that mortal that trespassed a certain place and was running really fast. Took us almost a day of chasing to catch him. And there was that time with a clanfear that bit on my commander's sword and started running. It was a good chase. Oh, so you were a chaser. Good, we have a situation here. Someone up that mountain is watching us for quite the time now. I'm afraid that I don't have the means to catch him quietly without doing a fuss. Can you do it without uttering a word the way I taught you? Huh, chasing a mortal? That's what I call sport. Hold this and don't lose it. Zykel handed me the soul sigil stone and disappeared in the darkness of the night. The half-witted idiot. All I needed is some time to study a thing or two about stone now that I have some magic power. I was thinking of using my own essence inside the vine to weaken it for a short while. It is a bit exhausting, but will work. I just had to push some of that essence violently through the vine until it reaches the sigil stone. This us it to pull some essence from the vine, weakening into some degree. It started as I expected, but became quite painful. The process was draining me, but in the end, here was it. A signal. I could feel it. She is there. I stood up facing Markarth, which I haven't been to in a few days by now. Seems like I need to go back. Mortal, look what I found. No, let me go. Ah, help. Shut it. Slap. Zykel brought a man to me. A Breton-like man with some fiendish facial features. A reach man. You got him without making a noise? I'm impressed, Zykel. What? No. He heard me coming and started running, but he was slow. Mortals are so weak. Sigh. I think there is no hope for that fool. Fine. Speak up, reach man. Why were you following me? And as always, no response came. Torture was an option, but the Reachmen are a bit nasty and used to that stuff. Still, the Mace of Molag Bal can make people sing in the end. His name is Morven, apparently a forsworn spy in Markarth, and he was up to me the moment I appeared in Markarth. I didn't need to know much about him. He works for Nepos the Nose. I know both Morven and Nepos from the game. Nepos is an elderly Reachman undercover in Markarth that works as a double agent for both the Forsworn and the Silverblood family of Nords. Things are not what they seem like. Nepos has a nose on that attack that targeted Wolfer. That was an answer that made more questions come to my mind, but one thing Morven said that made me curious. It was about Alaric. He was always called the Prince, but I didn't notice anything about that. The prince must be related to a king, and there is no king in the Reach but the king in rags. Interesting. Bash thud. I killed Morven with a mace to the head. Looks like I need to go to Markarth after all. I looked at the soul sigil stone that absorbed Morven's soul as the 100th. I could see it glowing with power. Something awakened in me. A new spell. I could feel it as if a memory was being engraved in my head. I simply handed back the sigil stone to Zykel and cast the spell. Ha ha ha. Motherfucker. Not only I was going to Markarth, but I got a ride too. The next spell I got was a conjuration spell of a lissom form curved head and twirled at the edge of my vision. Its expressions blank of all emotion, but for the avid hunger of the arsonist. A cold flame Atronak. Chapter 348, Development. The 5,000 Extra. Weapons of the Forsworn clashed against the shields with the dragon and crescent coat of arms, only to hear the ringing of the hits being deflected. As they were confirmed close, the shields would bash, and 3 rows of spears would go forward and obliterate the close Forsworn. The two forces were clashing for almost an hour. A well-equipped militia of highly trained soldiers and a chaotic horde of savages. The savages had high grounds, but were being pushed back on a systematic pace. Alina was the one leading the company's militia of 400 troopers. She watched from the back how the tactics were being implemented by the militia and commanded the mages to land decisive hits on the back of the enemy. In most cases, she would prefer to be in the shadow of John basking in his glory, but on the battlefield, she would send him to the front and command the whole force from the back. That was John's and Alina's understanding. John may be a scary opponent in battle, but his strategies were all about guerrilla warfare, surprise attacks, and overwhelming force. In a clash of armies, John wasn't anything special, and there where Alina came. Corrupted or not, Alina's eyes were always special. No lie can pass through them. They would see through the hearts of people and would even see the future. Even a monkey possessed those eyes. It can command the Imperial Legion itself, let alone a small militia, let alone a wise girl like Alina. The Forsworn tried to surprise her from the back, only to find fireballs already raining at them. They tried to throw rocks from the mountain, only to find the Dare militia completely handling them fine. Nothing was working. The Forsworn leader was in a complete disadvantage in his own camp and felt completely desperate. Just who in the world can face Alina when she has an army that is capable of maneuvering all the death traps and the fortifications? Of course, that power of hers was a strategic secret only a few were aware of, and John has already seen its potential. In the mock battles between the various teams, Alina has already driven John insane countless times. She can see anything coming unless it is John himself, who is strangely immune to her powers. The deadly beautiful leader stood at the back of the troops wearing her ice armor under her signature style of dresses. That color was black covered by a black fox mantle. The 2 blades, Blood Scythe and Soul Render, were on her left side over each other, and she wore an expressionless face. Behind her, there was some of those who were close to her and John, such as Freya, Vladimir, and half their firemane, as well as Trudvar, John's housecarl, Svaken Skywalker, Alina's housecarl, Lan Masadur, and some Imperial Legion officers. The ones aware of Alina's power to command an army were as impressed as the ones who were not aware. She has her own system of commanding troops, and she kept the casualties very low. Hell, the casualties were only some minor injuries. Other than Alina, what was more impressive was the power of the militia. They were put under many disadvantages factors, yet they were fighting as if they were some army of dead men. First, they were fighting on the lower grounds, which eliminated their ability to charge and gave the enemy that advantage. Second, they were going up the mountain road while maintaining formation, which was ridiculously hard. Third, their equipment resembled that of the Imperial Legion except for its Nordic style. Still, the infantry carried scutum shields, long spears, and arming swords. The archers carried lever-action crossbows, and the mages carried special staves. Those were professional fighters that the Legion would lust over them and try its best to saw them to its side. Still, they were mostly Nords and Dunmer, so it was hard to sway those 2 races. The battle went on, and the Forsworn refused to surrender until the last man. It seemed like admirable courage, but it was nothing but fanaticism. Luckily, there were always prisoners, and by that, Lost Valley Redoubt fell in Alina's hands. Dealing with the aftermath was simple. The corpses were incinerated thoroughly, and the prisoners were tied down and got interrogated. A tent was made for Alina on the mountain, and the place was secured. She walked with firm steps towards the top of the mountain and arrived at Bard's Leap summit. This is the place where John jumped from to escape from the Forsworn. Alina looked down the mountain all the way to the far river. Yes, Lady Alina. Lord John was sighted escaping by jumping from here to the river, or that's what the merchants that witnessed him claim. The Imperial officer replied. Jump that far? Svaken wondered. Believe it or not, the witnesses said that he had black wings and was maneuvering down in a volley of arrows. He didn't fly. Alina concluded. He must have used greed to glide. He always said it was possible, but why? She kept mumbling to herself. The ones around her didn't get a word. Any update on the interrogations? She asked. Yes, some of the prisoners cracked. Trudvar replied. Good, let's see what they have. An hour later, John was trapped here in this foul place for 2 months. Alina gasped as soon as she arrived at the Briarheart Grove. On her shoulder, a small version of Gleam, the spirit of the Elder Gleam, was watching the sight with horrified eyes. Those trees, foul ones, so many of them. The trees were already destroyed by John, but they were still mostly intact with the corpses stuck on them and under their roots. John destroyed them all, but why would he be stuck in those trees for 2 months? They were feeding on him. Gleam replied, These bad ones feed on people, but they were defeated in their own game. Your man has devoured them instead. Alina nodded as she sensed the answer. Traces of Podomic energy were everywhere in the grove. John cultivated on them while being captured and regained his power. He still had to cut his foot and some fingers to escape. It still confuses me. He was surely unable to cast magic. Those ones can put an ancient curse to stop devour magic. I'm not sure what happened to him, but it explains why was he impossible to locate with divination. Unable to use magic. Yeah, I can accept that explanation. He should be still having problems with that, and can't contact us or leave the reach, but I am sure he'll be fine. You're not worried? Why would I? His voice is still as strong as ever. He may be facing some hardships, but these are all minor setbacks for John. What I'm worried about is his impulses. When men get desperate, they get stupid. John is not an exception. Alina smiled and thought of the declaration of war John made. Surely it will cause many problems. She cast a flame spell on the trees in the grove and turned everything to ash. Such foul things should be completely destroyed. Outside the grove, Sveikin was waiting for her. He approached her and whispered, A message from Lord Jonrad. He said we should camp in this place and clear all the Forsworn around it and keep watch on Karthspire settlement. The firemen will send reinforcements from the north. Good, I can at least cope with that. Alina nodded and started to prepare for a long-term camping. With her arriving at this place, the Forsworn were put on a tight situation. They are now blocked from the east by Alina and her militia, and from the west by John himself. From the north, the firemen will come, and the south is blocked by the Jarrow Mountains. Still, who said there are no Forsworn allies in the south? It will all be revealed 7 days from now. After he arrived at Markarth and passed the regular checkup in the gate, John kept a low profile in the city and made sure to hide the Mace of Molagbal. This thing was eye-catching and would give off a scary vibe of energy, but thankfully it can be covered with greed to shape a large club or anything. The first aim is to find his trusty companion, Nefertiti. He had no clue on her location for 2 months, but one thing, he knows that they are bound together by their souls. One of the things that made John feel grateful toward Herson. Nefertiti cannot die unless John himself dies. How so? John refused to become a were-beast, as his soul should be clean to continue on his path of meditation. Herson wanted something from John, and John was already powerful to resist the blessing of the Prince of the Hunt and ever remove it. So Nefertiti became John's beast side, and she started to mutate into a higher life form, the fairy. John was aware of her being already above the norm of being a were-beast and gradually taking over the blessing of Herson. And if she is near in Markarth, she will at least respond when she senses him. Even though the cursed vine is getting in the way of them sensing each other, a magical life form like her can sense a human when they called by a chant they like in a place near where they live. Thankfully, John knew just the song that Nefertiti loves. John went right away to the Silver Blood Inn. The people inside saw him, and all went away. He was an infamous person known as Krylin, the bounty hunter. Mr. Krylin, welcome back. Should I prepare you the same room, or you're looking for contract? Some of the Jarl's men left a bounty just a while ago. Thanks, Frabbi. John smiled. I'll just warm myself by the fire and have some honey mead. John walked quietly and sat by the fire, then had his mead and started looking at the fire and smiling. Once he was ready, he circulated his essence energy forcefully and activated bardic knowledge. Mary Poppins, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Google it without copy. I dare you. It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Chapter 349, A Cat's Tale of Trouble. Now, Meowjesty JG has made a big donation. I'm just not sure how many extra chapters should I publish now. More than 3 months ago, the mountain fell on John. She felt the connection between her and John get disturbed. It was shaken and weak. John's life was endangered. Despite all that, she couldn't do a thing or move a muscle. She powerlessly fell down and couldn't move. She saw Wolfer carry her and run towards John's location. He put her down and started moving the rocks despite his injuries. Not having much of a chance, the Hagravens were already aiming their magic at him. Wolfer was locked in a desperate struggle between digging up a mountain and fighting the enemies with his life-threatening injuries. He did his best, but she saw one of the hags stretching its disgusting hand towards her. Catch the Fae. Rip her core. The hags carried on a disgusting smile as she said in a frenzied tone. Nefertiti was still unable to move. She wanted to resist or simply vanish in the shadow world to recover, but that was proving impossible. Her head was splitting from pain. Just as she was desperately trying to do anything about it, a silver beeline flew towards the hag and launched her away. It was Wolfer abandoning his hammer to save Nefertiti. He ran towards her and pulled her up. Human, we can't save him. We need to run. Wolfer carried the girl in his arms and ran to the south. No, John, Human. Her weak, pitiful screams kept muttering those 3 words repeatedly. No, please, he is in pain. I feel it stop. She could only move her arms weakly to push Wolfer away, but it was impossible with the weakness that struck her. She could only look back towards John's direction. Her voice turned into her original nature. It was the heartbroken meows of a cat mixed in human speech. Wolfer couldn't help but be shaken from the pain meows that she started to make. His eyes started tearing up as he ran through the darkness. Nefertiti started to transform slowly into her cat form. She kept getting smaller gradually, which was unnatural for her. Wolfer has already escaped a safe distance and hid with her in some cave he found. There was a water stream beside them, and both of them needed to heal. Not knowing what got to her, Wolfer couldn't communicate with her or even cure her. Only John can talk with her in her cat form, and she seemed weakened to the point that she developed a fever. Wolfer, too, couldn't resist his wounds and fell sick. Lucky for him, he can do some healing magic, but it was long since he ran out of magicka, and his recovery wasn't as good as John. He had to resort to the primal methods with himself and save the magic to Nefertiti. His spare dagger was heated on flames until it got red, and he kept treating his wounds by it. He was used to the fire, but still, it was unbearable. As for Nefertiti, she would only wake up every few hours for some short minutes, then pass down again. Wolfer would treat her for some time, only for her fever to go back to how it was again. Whenever they got hungry, Wolfer would go out with a wooden spear he crafted and hunt a rabbit or a wolf. They kept for 3 days like that, until Wolfer was in better shape than before. No one could tell where they hid until it was that day. Nefertiti woke up at night, and she was not quite herself. I don't feel him. He is not there. The connection between her and John broke, and she started to sober up. But something was not right. Not about John, but about her. It was not a full moon's night, so why she was feeling like that? She looked out the cave, and things started to feel wrong. It shouldn't come like that. She can already resist that effect. This madness. Wolfer. She started to transform gradually. Wolfer heard her and woke up. Hey, you're transformed. Not sure what was happening, Wolfer backed down a few steps as he noticed Nefertiti's unnatural aura. This was not a good sign. In such a night, Nefertiti was abnormally turning wild. He only had a crude spear made of wood and stone to fend off himself, which he was fully aware that won't stand a single chance against Nefertiti. He has not completely recovered himself, too. Run, don't bullshit me. Wolfer's righteous character activated and tried to approach Nefertiti to calm her, but what he didn't expect happened next. Her hand enlarged and entered the werewolf form on its own, then slashed with its claws at him. Reflexly blocking her attack, Wolfer jumped backward and rolled to absorb the shock, but as he faced her again, she was fully in the werewolf form and an inch away from his throat. His reflexes were still high, and he continued to roll backward with his momentum dodging her 3 times miraculously. Just as he got the foothold he needed, he kicked the ground, jumping out of the cave's entrance. His body was screaming with pain, but he couldn't stop. A berserking werewolf was something he knew he shouldn't face. Running was the only option, but that meant giving up on both John and Nefertiti. Wolfer swallowed it in his heart and started running. Sure as hell, the berserking Nefertiti gave a chase. In such a dark night, her senses were much superior to his, and her agility was scary. The 10 meters between them were now only 1 centimeter, and her claws were about to dig at his back, but still, someone interfered. Catch it, the Fae. It is here. A bolt of lightning magic descended on Nefertiti, launching her a distance behind Wolfer. No, he couldn't endure the sight of a comrade being shot like that. He already lost all his comrades and his brother. His mentality was only hanging to a thread of hope that John is alive. He wanted to rely on Nefertiti, who can locate John even in oblivion, but things were going out of his way. Suddenly, a flock of ravens flew in the night sky and landed to form an entity. A Hagraven. No, not a normal one. An Elder Hagraven. Ha ha ha. The curse worked. Now, catch it. In that night, a band of Forsworn appeared from the mountains and headed towards Nefertiti with chains, hooks, and harpoons. Wolfer could understand their plan fully. Fuck you all, enraged he, to the nearest Forsworn, only to be shot by the magic of the Elder Hagraven and fall on his face. Not giving up, he shot up with all his might once again, not caring for his wounds, and punching the head of the nearest Forsworn, turning it into pieces, and looted his weapon immediately. Not that a weapon was in his hand. The Titans shall tremble. His head blanked out, and all he could remember was blood and bones being crushed. 8 swords broke in his hands, and the dead were all over. He reached the semi-unconscious Nefertiti and kicked her so she can fully awake. In her werewolf form, Nefertiti regained her frenzied state and attacked without looking. Wolfer was already far away from her, and her victims were the Forsworn. A hack-and-slash scene occurred while Wolfer and Nefertiti avoided the spells that were being cast by the Elder Hagraven and used the warriors as meat shields. Wolfer wanted to take down the Hagraven, but it seemed impossible. As they ran out of meat shields, the Hagraven could finally attack them directly. Wolfer had no choice but to pull Nefertiti's aggro on himself and make a run for it. It worked without him doing anything, and he ran towards the Traveler's Road, hoping to find some aid. He was near Old Roldan, over the bridge across Karth River. Just as Nefertiti came closer, the Elder Hagraven was already blocking their road and opened her mouth to breath flame like how John does with the Thursdam. The choices were limited to death from the front or death from the back, but Wolfer's tenacity showed its full potential by the next move. He threw the weapon he had on the Hagraven and turned around to face Nefertiti's claws that dug deep in his arms. With that, he resisted all the pain and hugged Nefertiti, then jumped with her off the bridge. And both disappeared in the river. She woke up with heavy eyes. She could feel it, the blood in her mouth. No, what have no, she knew it. Every time her instincts as a werbeast kick in, she would go hunt, and the next day, she would wake up with the taste of blood in her mouth. This taste was different. It was human blood. Just what did she do? Did she harm Wolfer? She was terrified. Her mentality was already in an extreme state, let alone bearing the guilt of going wild on a comrade. He was the last person with her. If it was him, she can never face John ever again. She woke up. A voice broke her line of thoughts. She looked up to see a blonde Nord woman in a monk's habit looking down on her. "Girl, are you all right? Do you understand what I say?" The woman said. Nefertiti looked at her hand, and sure, she was in human form. She then looked at the woman and nodded. "Where are your parents?" the woman asked. Nefertiti tilted her head. "Parents. She once had those, but she can't recall them. Her mother, she's a cat in the college, and her father is also another cat. Why are they important to ask about?" She only shook her head. "Oh," the woman put on a complicated face. "Then who looks after you?" Nefertiti looked down and spoke with a weak voice. "Human, who is that? Your family? Friend?" Nefertiti shook her head. "He is." Nefertiti couldn't say more than that. What was he to her? A father? An older brother? No, that's how human may look at it. It was different for her. "He is my human." That's the relationship she knew. It was all she needed. "I don't get it." The woman made a complicated face, but smiled in the end. "I suppose that you were lost, right? We fished you from the river after all." Nefertiti listened and didn't reply. "This is a holy ground for the goddess Mara, a shrine where we priesthood of Mara do some sacred rituals, so we don't live in the city, but don't worry. A friend of ours will come in a few days and will take you to the city. There you will find that word you said." The priestess said. "Really?" "Yes, really. Now rest well." As the priestess promised, 3 days later to Nefertiti's arrival, an old priestess in a yellow habit came to visit the sacred ground of Mara. Despite not being a member of Mara's cult, the priestess was treated with utmost respect, being addressed as the Lady Sibyl of Dibella. As if two spirits had a long, deep connection with one another, Nefertiti and the Sibyl of Dibella made a connection right away. Even though a black cat, Nefertiti was welcomed into the temple of Dibella, whose sacred animals are the white cats. The Sibyl insisted to keep Nefertiti in the temple rather than sending her to the orphanage. Even though not trying to get along with the priestesses, Nefertiti and the Sibyl of Dibella had many conversations together that none knew of. The old lady and the little cat were almost friends. And 3 months went by. The only thing the Nefertiti cherished was her black dress and a necklace of Dwemer metal that she refused to let anyone touch. And finally, at one night, Nefertiti heard some singing. She was drawn to it and just walked silently out of the temple. She kept walking in streets she didn't know and places she saw for the first time until she arrived at a tavern and walked. She saw many people gathered smiling around one man who was singing a silly song that she was so familiar with. Yes, it was the song that led her here. Nefertiti saw his face hidden under his hood, and a surge of emotions attacked her. But she attacked back, with a broom, on the head, screaming atop her lungs, "Human, you idiot!" Chapter 350, The Party Starts. I'm not sure if it's the spirit of Ramadan or what, but yesterday it was JG, and today Hirak Barua. Many thanks to both. Now my workload is getting scary, people. Things would have been easier if you told me that time. I'm sorry, but the girl, she has long since become a guest in this temple. I hope that you understand that I was worried. Things didn't look that good for you back then. Sigh. I understand. I looked down at Nefertiti, who was sleeping on my lap. She was holding on to me as if she would never let go. Thank you for taking care of her. I will never forget that favor. I talked to the old woman in front of me. She was the person who watched for Nefertiti for the past 3 months, the Sibyl of Dibella. Once Nefertiti found me earlier tonight, I was beaten to a pulp by Har in the middle of the inn, but luckily a priestess came and cleared the misunderstanding of the people around. The priestess tried to take Nefertiti with her, but she was already holding on my neck. That's my little girl. I tried to calm her, but she was frustrated and angry at me until she fell asleep. I then could follow the priestess to the temple of Dibella, where I met the old Sibyl. So, do you understand the girl's nature? She asked me. I didn't respond for a few seconds, then spoke. A simple bond is not all we share. Without that curse's vine around me, we could have shared our thoughts, emotions, location, senses, and many things. I guessed as much. The Sibyl nodded. It is unusual to see something like that. First, it was my bloodline power that forged a connection between us. Then the stag prince came in and made the connection stronger. Many things have happened to her that made her stronger and caused her to change until this point. I don't understand what she has become, but I already know that she has broken through the limits of being a normal being since the day she followed me. I'm not sure if I should regret making such an innocent one go through all that. You need to thank Debella that she didn't read those thoughts, or it wouldn't have just ended up as some normal beating. Huh, right? True, if Nefertiti read those thoughts, it wouldn't go away lightly. The Sibyl had a nostalgic look on her face, and then she looked at me. You have been through thick and thin. I am sure Debella wouldn't have spoken just on a whim. She said something that brought me back to our first meeting. I don't know what to think about that meeting. I mean, Debella speaking? It was weird. The Edra do not interfere or speak as much as the Daedra. The goddess speaks to me sometimes. It is not that unusual in my case. Really, hee. The gods always speak, child. You just need to learn how to listen. Thank you for the advice. I think we should go now, I said as I carried Nefertiti and stood. Hold on a second. There is something you need. The Sibyl stood up and walked to the center of the temple. Come. She pointed. I walked after her. Do you know how to pray? She asked. I know how to meditate. I replied. Same thing. Sit here and try it. She pointed at the stairs leading to the fountain in the middle of the temple. I nodded and sat, then closed my eyes and heightened my senses to focus on my inner self. I could tell that there's a feeling I don't understand about this place. Something mysterious just came into contact with me the moment I started meditating. The feeling around me changed, as if I was teleported someplace else. I hurriedly opened my eyes for a second, just for a second, or even less. I don't understand what I saw. How could such a place exist in this world? The second wasn't enough, but it was all I had. I opened my eyes to see what was around me. I was back at the temple, or maybe I didn't leave. You saw it, didn't you? You saw it too? The Sibyl of Debella spoke with a shocked face. She knew something. That place, I tried to talk, but I was too dizzy. She nodded as if she understood. For years, I've been wasting my energy for years to see it one more time before I pass. She spoke frantically at first, but her tone turned sorrowful. I see. Things are not as simple. The view from the above, the dance atop, the endless yellow field of flowers and pink sky. Where was that? I asked the Sibyl. Debella. The Sibyl only knelt to the shrine and started to cry. Too many answers lead at too many questions. I was shown a place that explained things and made things more mysterious. Was it someplace I will go to? Somewhere I am destined to arrive at? Too many questions that I had to put at the back of my head. It was all a test in the end. This whole ordeal we walk. To pass it is to walk, and to walk is to perfect every step, else one will be pushed back. I was pushed back because I didn't walk right. Now I get it. There is guidance in the predicament, and every issue needs a decisive solution. In my current case, I need to quit dallying and step on the gas. The enemy is waiting. Nefertiti, where is the cube? She pulled up her sleeve and showed it to me on her arm. Come then. We can't go to war on empty stomachs, can we now? Her mood was still sour, and she would stare at me for some time to express her displeasure. She was weakened as much as I was weakened too. We are connected after all. She said that she lost the sensation of her left foot and of her fingers at some point, but she is healing herself on a daily basis. I think I am a blame here. Here, you favorite smoked salmon. She only takes food and nips on it. Nom nom nom. And she did it as cute as ever. It was hard to take her seriously, but her feeling didn't need some magic bond to be felt. I could already tell how upset she was. I am as upset as her too, but it is a good thing that we follow the same creed of don't be upset on an empty stomach. According to what I know now, She can barely go into the shadow world, but she can use my shadow as easier access. This is for the good. I need her to stay like that now that her magic is unstable. She can also take the cube with her, and everything shall be safe this way. Also, now that I got the cube back, I can finally have better meals, a warm bed, a hot bath, and my mobile arsenal back. Some preparations were needed for the next move I am making, and thankfully, I got all that I need. I laid on the bed thinking again of what I experienced in the temple, now that my thoughts were all back together and could calm my mind. Something is strange. The place I saw had a strange law to it. I even tried to ask Shadow many times, and he didn't respond. It wasn't important at the moment, but I felt like I got a hint once I returned to the cube. It gave a feeling very similar to that place. Not like the same kind, but the same law was applying to both of them. Mysterious, yet mystical. Even Urena won't be of help regarding the subject. It seems like I need to pay a visit to the old monsters someday. Let's just sleep. The next day came, and I dressed myself in my usual ragged armor that I used around Markarth. I exited the cube with Nefertiti and gave it to her, and then she sank in my shadow. It felt better that way knowing that she got my back. The conversation we had was brief, as she was still angry at me, but she was still the usual her. I promised that I will avenge both of us very soon. Today was the first step in doing so. I walked through Markarth with the mace being covered by an old cloth. Once I arrived at a particular house, I knocked on the door. Coming, a voice of a woman replied to me. The door opened, and a young woman appeared behind it. She looked like a Breton, but that was the face of a Reach native. Once she noticed who I am, she hurriedly tried to shut the door, but I put the mace in to stop her from doing so. How do you do? My name is John Dare, and I'm really pissed off. Lucky for you, I have got this offer from my company, a sale on our latest product. Are you interested? The young woman looked at me with hostility, and I guessed that she reached out to a weapon behind her. Well, the offer was 2 lives for the price of 1. That's you. Just thought if it may pique your interest, and you just let me in quietly but sigh, let's go with the Forsworn Special. A mace to the head, and get soul shriven for eternity. Just show me to old man Nepos. I punched the girl's face before she could react, and barged in. Sure as hell, there was a party waiting for me. Zykel come out. Just as I asked him, the link between me and Zykel summoned him right away. Mortal, guard the door and keep counting. This party will be lit. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Dragonblooded. Chapter 3, 51 Blood Party. This is 8,000k extra of last week. John walked in the house of old man Nepos the Nose. Just like any other house in Markarth, the house was a piece of gray stone carved in the mountain by the ancient dwarves. A house not even the dragons can break with ease. Still, inviting the wolf in was a mistake. He looked at the girl he punched lying down with a bloody nose while looking at him hatefully. He replied with a calm, yet wide grin, showing how much he enjoyed the punch. Zykel, who appeared out of the void, walked in behind John. As John has instructed him before, he was already clad in a black cloak and a hood to not alert the residents of Markarth. None could sense his arrival through the void, so he was seen as John's second. Guard the door and start the count. This party will be lit. Hee hee, you sure know how to have fun for a mortal. Zykel's voice, which was akin to pieces of metal clashing with each other, made the people of the house feel that something was going out of their plan. John observed the ones around him that reached 20 in total. It seemed that the master of the house has made some preparations of sort. Sorry to come on such a short notice, but by any chance was I expected? John asked in his easygoing tone. Or maybe I arrived at the party early before you guys invite me? The one who replied to John was an old man who came from inside the house to the entrance hall. You are not expected, nor you are welcome, killer of kin. The old voice showed displeasure towards John. Oh, John was interested in the name. Killer of kin. Kin killer sounds cooler, or maybe kinsbane. Well, that's not important. None of it is. The important one here is you, old Nepos. My friend Morven told me a lot about you. What? Morven? He was, damn it. The reactions of the people around Nepos was clearly shocked. It seems that their comrade that was late was actually captured by John. Well, not that I care, but mind if you answer some questions for me? John said. There is nothing to ask. Nepos said and smiled slyly. You actually saved us some time and came by yourself. We were going to look for you, and now you are here. Boy, blame no one but yourself. Just as Nepos said so, footsteps sounded from inside, and some figures appeared behind Nepos. The people looked normal at a glance, but John recognized the foul aura right away. Briarheart warriors, 10 of them. That's some party you have thrown for me here, old man. John shook his head wryly. You will pay. The girl John punched shot up and stood beside Nepos. Sigh. Fine, but before we start, mind telling me those two things on my mind? What is it? Who is Alaric to Mutinak? And who ordered the hit on my brother? John asked. Nepos seemed surprised. He couldn't understand why John knew about the king in rags. Even the Jarl is not aware that Mutinak is still alive, and the Silverblood family exploits the imprisoned king to control the Forsworn through Nepos. Alaric is our prince, heir to our late king and his grandson. One of the people around said, ever so proud with Alaric. Oh, grandson of the king in rags. I expected as much. And? John waited for the answer to the second question. Nepos the Nose seemed to be threatened by John's knowledge of Mutinak's survival and pointed at him right away. Kill him. The Forsworn around John became bloodthirsty in a split of a second and bounced at John altogether. Fine by me. Music. DMX. X-Gon give to ya. Bardic knowledge was activated with essence, and a stereo speaker appeared along with crazy speed buff. With a grim weapon, Molag's mace in a hand and the shadow ether, greed on another, John swung his arms left and right, deflecting every assailant in a single move. Greed turned into a clutch with a chain and got launched on one of the Forsworn, pulling it fast toward John to get his head splashed open by the mace. Another one came from behind to only find a big boot in the face, taking his head down with the mace crushing his guts. A third and a fourth jumped on John's arms to stop him from moving, but John only shook his arms, launching the two men up to the ceiling and focusing on another two by skewering them together with greed. He was about to get cornered, so he threw the mace at a man and greed at another. Then a blue flame appeared on his hands, and two basic flame spells were shot out, devouring 6 Forsworn. Greed jumped at the mace on its own and clutched on it, and turned into a chain while reaching John's hand. John pulled the mace fast to move like a meteorite and strike the two men that were tossed up to the ceiling and fell on the ground. A man took the chance, and a punch landed on John's head, turning it to the right. John's expressions crumbled as the man's fist was still on his face. He returned his head back fast, and the man's fist bounced off back to its owner's own face, knocking him down before the mace drops in his nether region, sending. The Briarheart warriors seemed to have reacted late, just only when half the Forsworn were killed in a few seconds and charged from behind Nepos toward John. The latter nonchalantly turned greed into a blaster and pointed it at the coming attackers. Bolts of cold flames started devouring the Forsworn one by one. The destructive force of those blue blots was nothing to scoff as they ravaged the essence of anything living they touch, and even showed marks on the mighty dwarven stone of the house. Maneuvering little by little, John has already torched up the Briarheart Forsworn into a mess of snow ash. The ones around were already terrified but too stubborn to surrender. One attacked John to only get his face disfigured by a punch. The second came from the side, waving a sword to get greed, slicing his head, and a kick making it fly away like a ball. The third tried to throw his body at John to only get captured by the nape of his shirt and was swung up and down like a rag doll between the floor and the ceiling. The fourth was grabbed by John's other hand and got his head to kiss the walls and the stone furniture, leaving traces of bloody faces everywhere. The fifth was torn apart by greed. The sixth was thrown to a wall for his bones to bend and break in all wrong directions, Lastly was the girl who opened for John. "Come here, beauty." John pulled the frozen pale girl towards him and kissed her violently. Then the sound of something being torn was heard. The maces passed completely through her guts and went out from her back. Even Zykel flinched from the sight. "What? Before going to war, you need to penetrate a girl. You Draymora don't do that? TSK. You crazy mortal." Zykel clicked his tongue and looked away. John let go of the lifeless corpse and pulled the mace out. He then walked towards Nepos, who started backing away. Nepos evoked a spell and cast it on one of the corpses, but John destroyed the head before it starts rising. Necromancy, huh? Not a good performance, though. John took out a knife and stabbed it in the leg of Nepos, causing the old man to scream in agony and fall down, withering in pain. "Now tell me, Slime, who ordered the hit on my brother?" To John's question, Nepos didn't answer. Raising his brows slightly, John could only think of inflicting more pain to get answers. Luckily, Molag's mace was in his very capable hands, and the amount of pain it can cause was bad. Crazy bad. "See this face on the mace? It's Molag balls. Now kiss." A few minutes passed, and Nepos finally talked. John was displeased with the lack of information, but he was told that the man who came with the hit request on Wolfer was a Khajiit called Darzino, who works as a weapon smuggler. It was probably one of Eriker's associates, but Eriker didn't have a network in the Reach, as John already knew. After getting what he wanted, John dispatched Nepos right away to his new address. 21, Tower of Lies, Cold Harbor, Oblivion. Now that everything was put in order, he turned around to Zykel. "I want you to go out of the house and scream as human as possible. Lead the people to this house, and don't forget to go away after you are done." "What are you intending to do, mortal?" Zykel asked. "Nothing. Just thinking of how one can make an appointment with King." Well, suit yourself." Zykel walked out as John asked. Now as John remained alone, Nefertiti showed up. John handed her the valuable stuff he had on him, then she went back to the shadow with the cube by sinking in his shadow. John knelt on the ground with hands above covered in blood and put a poker face. He was hoping to see how the most secure prison in Skyrim can contain him. Chapter 352, No One Escapes, Sidnamine. A new changes for Pat Rayon will be added with June. Extra chapter, every new, plus $10 PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. You have committed crimes against Skyrim and her people. What say you in your defense? Ah shit, here we go again. What? Yeah. I am guilty, I'll come quietly. TSK. You'll never see the sun again. You hear me? No one escapes, Sidnamine. No one. Sidnamine. All right, prisoner. You are in Sidnamine now, and we expect you to earn your keep. There is no resting your hide in a cell in this prison. Here you work. You'll mine, or until you start shitting up silver bars, you got it? But that doesn't sound very healthy. Don't get smart with me, Draugr face. I'm in charge. You keep it up, and I'll get your toes cut off. Well, one foot is already off, so let's see how you fare with the other. My advice, don't get it eaten, haha. The one roughing up John was a female orc who works as the prison warden of Sidnamine, Urzoga Jureshugars. She tried to beat up John a few times during the interrogation, but despite doing her best, there was no cracking this hulk of a man. It didn't matter anyway. Inside Sidnamine, tougher beasts were broken, and a Nord can't survive among the horde of the Reachmen piling up in the mine. He's just one man after all. The problem now was when the news reaching the Silverblood family. This Nord killed Nepos the Nose, someone who works with the Silverblood, and makes some important links around the place, even though Urzoga and her brother Mulish, the one overseeing the Silverblood smelter, had some animosity with Nepos. Not that it mattered anyway now. Another Nepos will come to handle things. That's how things go in the Reach. John was admitted in with the alias of Draugr. None really cared and took him for a madman. His half-damaged face and body were all scary to look at, so they have him a face cover and tied a stick to his left leg to use as a foot out of courtesy. His fake prosthetic foot was confiscated after all. As Urzoga shoved John in through the metal gate of the mine, he walked in on the wooden platform that leads down to the mining ground. John stopped at its edge and looked down to see a horde of people under the platform looking up at him. Reach men, all of them. It was obvious, Nords do not survive in this place if they don't serve the Reach men. His eyes scanned the place around as he walked down. There was no hint of sunlight coming down to this place, and to tell how long a prisoner stayed here is to look how pale its skin has become. Arriving at the ground level, John had no plan on his mind on how to deal with anyone around her. He looked around and found a bucket with pickaxes. He picked one and walked further in the mine. "Hey!" A voice called at him from the back. John stopped and looked towards the caller. "That one is mine." A young Forsworn appeared behind John, looking up at him with challenging eyes. He was pointing at the pickaxe John took. The thing is, there was a pickaxe already on his side. John looked down at the little man, who came and handed out the pickaxe. The Forsworn held the pickaxe and tried to pull it from John's hand, but it was acute trying John's eyes. The young man pulled the axe, but it was as if trying to pull out a piece of a wall. John wasn't even moved. "Little guy, watch for your size." John mocked him. The Forsworn seemed to have not liked it and jumped at John, swinging some small metal nail at John's neck. Tink! The nail's tip bounce of John's skin broken and fell with metallic sound on the cold stone. The young man backed away, looking at the nail in his hand with a pale face. John simply extended his hand and grabbed the young man from his neck, pulling him closer. The surroundings turned quiet suddenly, and some people stood up around John. The Forsworn were clearly sticking up for each other. John simply smiled and let go of the young Forsworn, then walked in. The young man remained as still as a log of wood. Being as large as John has its advantages. Prisoners will be wary and show some respect, but of course, taking things too far will cause the prisoners to revolt. Men are scary in tight spaces. Still, John wasn't planning to spend a lot of time in jail. He just needed to see how things work here. Sitting in mine was much like the chill of Winterhold. The chill was Winterhold's mine before the Black Room. It was an ice cave where people get locked in cages, then get released to mine around the chill isle. Here in Sidna Mine, it was just an underground mine where one can only mine all day and rest, but resting was a challenge. None could tell the day and night in here, and just a few hours were enough to mess with anyone's biological clock. Also, having a safe and quiet place to sleep was a luxury none had. Mining was also a challenge. There were places with silver ore and places with no ore. Those that don't mine silver don't get food, and the Forsworn were really in control of the process in prison. Not just that, they used the policy of divide and conquer with the Nords. If you're a Nord, you can't stay with other Nords. It is better if you snitch on them or steal them to please the Forsworn so that you can survive down there. That kind of situations wasn't wired as far as John could tell. Also, sleeping mats were precious, so one must make himself space to sleep and guard it. John sighed to himself in the end, then found an empty spot and started striking the pickaxe in the wall. Sure enough, John's strikes were loud and strong. A lot of people looked at him with more respect now. Still, John failed to notice that besides the wall was an old man in mage robes, sleeping peacefully. With that first hit, the old man woke up scared. Who? Where? What? When? Sometimes why? You. Knocking on my pillow. I'll call you Pillow Knocker. Explain yourself. No. Speak up. Honestly, they're the same policy, as far as I know. The old man in a mage's robe seemed to be quite familiar to John, especially with his silver hair and yellow glowing eyes. Yeah, John was taken by surprise from the man's frenzied tone. I kind of think this is a mine, so I'll just keep minding my own business. PFFFWAHA. Good one. Just stop knocking on that wall, boy. It is now ringing all over my head. Oh, wait. Wasn't it always ringing? Never mind. You won't find anything where you dig. It was all cleared up ages ago. Then, well, unless you think this is a quarry rather than a silver mine, keep doing what you were doing someplace else. Huh. John smiled and decided to give up. The old man pointed for John to sit. How did they catch you, boy? Don't tell me you let yourself get caught for a noble purpose. He asked. John smiled and thought of a reply. Lollygagging. The old man held his sides and started laughing hard. So, what are you in here for? John looked at the old man. Me? I am here for you. I'm sure you were clumsy enough to get yourself captured after that bloodbath you made. Want to get out? Not this soon. Well, at least you need a method to go out, don't you? I already know it. Why AT? Where's the sport in that? Tell you what, I'll give you a staff that can teleport you out in exchange for your heart and lungs. Pretty sure I will need those. Really? How boring. Then a knife that can tear out those metal bars, or a sword that you can fly on. What do you want, Uncle? John asked with a tired face. What do I want? I was just bored, you know. I wanted to have a game with someone, and I found you in a predicament. Here, I have a good idea. Let's have a contest. A contest wrapped in a mystery with an enigma glaze. Oh, what fun will we have? I killed your chickens last time. You sure you want to have a contest with me? What is wrong with that? It was fun seeing you blowing all those kirkers in a cloud of feathers. You welcome then. So what is the contest? Oh, you know it. One of the regular death traps I give you mortals. Nothing too fancy as, say, resembling the Staff of Chaos or reconstructing the Nimidium. Oh God, please no. Well, here goes the con. I'll stop you right there. John held out his hand. Look, I'm in the middle of something right now. I got both Azura and Molag Bal to deal with, and believe me, if you're feeling charitable, just give me a handout and don't ask for anything. What? Without a contest? A trial? A competition? TSK, fine. See this prison we are in? I'll kill everyone in it and mutilate their corpses, then damn them to oblivion for eternity, except for someone that I will save for later. What say you? Yeah, the old man seemed unwilling. And I'll invite you for the next family gathering, but no tearing anyone's insides out. John put that on top of the offer. That should be fun. Deal. John got closer to his dear uncle and asked, Now tell me, what is the news? I seem to be gathering some attention between the nobility of Oblivion. Oh, you think so? It is actually true. You got on Dagon's bad side really well. Even I will have to raise my hat for that. He insisted to make a big bet that you will die on your labors. And Malakath hates you for some reason. I also hate Malakath. Actually, everyone does hate Malakath. Yeah, I heard. And you had to go to Molag for help? Molag, of all the princes? I mean, what happened to your dear old uncle? Molag is more actually manageable than a particular someone. At least I know what he wants, and I give it to him. Deed is sealed. John replied with a sullen face. True, but that will bite your ass in the end. I am well aware. As long as I'm not dragged to oblivion, I'll manage as long as I recover my power. Oh, by the way, can't you help me with that vine? What? Where's the fun in that? Also, this is Azura's labor, and I can't interfere. One hell of an uncle you are. At least I will get some massacres out of this. The old man said and stood up. We'll be seeing you, nephew, real soon. As he finished his words, Shiagarath disappeared from his place. John looked around and found no one seemed to have noticed Shiagarath or the conversation they had. He sighed in his heart and started observing the prison. At night, John was resting his body to a cave's wall when most of the miners were asleep. Some were on the lookout, but that didn't stop John from calling out Nefertiti and getting the cube, Greed, and Molag's mace from her. Hey, I want you to check some place for me. It should be in that direction. I will be waiting for you there. John gave her some instruction, and she followed quietly. He also quietly took out the metal head of his pickaxe and walked through the sleeping miners to the wooden platform leading in the mine. None of the guards was present close by, so he had all that he needed. It is as you said, but it is a bit tight for you to pass. You need to do some digging. Nefertiti returned back to him, confirming John's information. Good. John agreed and told her to come inside his shadow. With all that said and done, John was ready to commence the second part of his plan. He put the pickaxe's head through the bars of the prison's gate and used his brute force to bend the metal into a knot ceiling off the prison. Zykel, come out. John called for his Draymore companion. Mortal, oh, look at all those prey. You were planning to get yourself in such a delicious hunting ground from the start? Shut up, you pervert. Hey, why is your face so full of scratches? Let's just say, Daedra princes are not the common cause of death in Oblivion. Female Dremeras are scary. By sure, what an odd coincidence is this? We have that too. Let's just get done with what we have in hand, then I will listen to your story. Yeah. Call it chaos, call it mayhem. To John, it was just another bloodbath where he had to step on many bugs and a hack and slash one versus many fight. Ever since his power grew dramatically, he was no longer considered a human even in the eyes of himself. No human has the stamina to take that number on his own without getting tired or injured. His skin was tough and can resist any unenchanted and common materials. Also, the prisoners in this world wear anti-magic bracers that John didn't need with his vine to begin with. He killed so many, and the place was filled with blood and guts. There was that man that John took of his arm and started beating him with half to death before claiming his life with a mace. The prisoners didn't dare to attack John first and kept trying to focus on defense in groups, and some tried to play dead, but Zykel had some good eyes for a live prey. In the end, John reached the central cell in Sidnamine and broke its door. Behind it, there was a corridor that led to a large room. There, John could see some of the NPCs from the game. Uraxan, Dutch, Borkel the Beast, and most importantly Madanak, the king in rags. From their point of view, John was a towering bloody warrior covered in blood and smiling the creepiest smile they ever saw in ages. Despite being forsworn and used to killing and raiding, this man was another level of crazy. Now, Madanak shouted, and the three around him bounced at John in one go. John bashed the first with his hand and smashed the other's head with a mace. The last was Borkel the Beast, a hulk for an orc. John Simple sliced his guts open with greed and dug his hands and then took out Borkel's intestines and started strangling him with them. Strangling someone with their own intestines? Classic. Zykel couldn't help but applaud. Borkel was already dead in John's hands anyway. John turned around to finally he faced Madanak. "Oh, your royal majesty, I came to escort you out," John said, mocking. Who are you?" "Me? I am John Dare, and I fucking hate your kind." John punched Madanak before the later could swing his shiv. Madanak lost consciousness and laid on the ground. John simply approached him and took him in the cube as prison space. Now that the package was recovered, it was time to break out and escape from Sidnamine. Chapter 353, Chaos 1. The Reach maybe is a cursed place that trapped John for 3.5 months, but the air outside the prison sure smelled nice. John was reincarnated as a Nord, and Nords are the children of kind the sky. Nords stray from the sky, are forever lost. After arriving at the tunnel behind Madanaka's cell, John used greed at a large digging drill and opened up a path through a Dwemer ruin directly to the city of Markarth. Knowing he shouldn't draw much attention, John snuck through the city skillfully despite his eye-catching size and completely walked out of Markarth to the hills of the Reach. He no longer has any attachment to the city or the hold itself. He even prayed not to ever return here ever again. Riding on Cold Flame Atronak horse, John kept heading to the west where he can finish this damned labor. His heart was finally full of hope he would see his family once again. He looked around the hills and chose one near to Karthspire, the major Forsworn settlement he is targeting. He found a peak suitable enough for observation and recon. Climbing the way up there, he felt some presences lurking around. "You sure Alaric sent them away?" "Yes, he wouldn't risk after that time with the Nord. The monster would kill even children." "You are right, but we can't worry about him now. That woman that is looking for him, we need to do something about her too." "Yeah, Alaric called the mountain tribes, and they came. Not sure if it is a bad thing now that they withstood an attack of that woman, and we didn't fall back. What worries me is the north. Another band of Nords are coming up from Jalmarch. They can't navigate in the Reach from the north." "Really? As far as I know, these Nords will do anything to kill us, especially that red-eyed woman." John heard that conversation and his whole being shivered. Alina was here in the reach, and the firemen's are coming from the north. He expected them to show up, but not with large numbers. At least some search teams should be here first. John bit on his lips until blood came out. His mind was screaming, not today. He can't meet them today. Not with the plan he has in mind. Not with his appearance. Not with all that. He realized, what was he escaping from all that time? He should have at least contacted them. God damn it. He closed his eyes and felt the unease that was piled up in his chest coming out all at once. He couldn't escape from this feeling anymore. The tightness in his chest from being defeated and humiliated was unbearable. He didn't want to look broken in front of his family with a messed up face and some lost limbs. He wasn't that weak person. Truth be told, he didn't bear looking at his reflection on water or a mirror. It was all too much for him. Knowing it was all his fault, he just needed to fix it the way he knows, by simply going forward. Just like that kid who broke something and his parents discovered him, then he shouts and screams, "I can fix it. I can fix it." That's what he tells himself. No need to involve them. I can still fix it. Was it a matter of pride? A matter of not showing weakness? Of being the hero whose weak side must always be hidden, even from his family? It was a tough choice and a miserable one. It took him quite the time to regain his composure. Actually, he got tired of it. His baseless selfishness and egotism were still hurt, but he at least can still focus on what he had without them for now. He stood up lifelessly with the mace in his hand, but he wasn't willing to step out just yet. He sighed and called for Zykel. "Are we going to attack, mortal?" Zykel was as excited as ever to hunt down more humans. John pointed with his head and spoke. "Some mortals are behind that rock. Go kill them." John said. "You're not going to kill them?" Zykel was taken aback. "Just dealing with some mortal insecurities that keeps us weak and puny." "You can use some fun, too," John said with a hint of self-mockery. "I knew it. Ha ha ha. I knew it. Getting to follow the mighty Zykel will soon make you realize how puny and pathetic mortals are." Zykel was feeling satisfied at last. "Yep, go for it, champ." Zykel raised his greatsword and started running towards the mortals he ought to kill. "Watch and learn. Mortals, here I come." John felt a bit lighter after seeing that idiot running forward with no plan. He sat on a rock and took out a crystal orb from his cube. If Alina was close, then she should have one similar orb with her. He brought the orb near his head and let his consciousness flow into it. "Ollie!" His transmission was weak due to his disturbed, severed magicka, but he at least can do it with a magic tool. During the wait for a response, John felt the connection with Zykel get disturbed too. He looked around and narrowed his eyes, then summoned Zykel again. Sure enough, Zykel was covered in a blue slime with a pitiful appearance. "What happened?" John asked. "I will not give you UP." Zykel ran in the same direction once again. Okay. Zykel charged up again and got defeated. John could tell that the blue slime was the azure plasm, the substance where the Dremora of Cold Harbor gets recreated from after experiencing death. John called him once again, and the idiot ran into death without even clearing his mistake. "Mortals, I'll kill you." Each time angrier than before. It caused John a chuckle. "I may have been defeat, but I am not defeated. Good one." John clapped in his mind. During his fun time, waiting for a reply and trying to push his worries away, John could feel a response. "John, is that you?" Oh, completely taken off guard, John heard Alina's reply from the telepathy orb. Hearing that voice was something he yearned for since the days he was captured in the Briarheart tree, but now that he heard it, he got cold feet. He wanted to say many things as his lips parted, yet none of those words came. The chaos piled up in his mind was all cramped up trying to fit in through the tiny amount of words in the common language, but words ran out long ago. "Hey girl." He smiled as he finally said it. Just a normal greeting after 3 months of not seeing her. Well, he can be branded as a jackass and call it a day. "John, is that you? Is that really you?" "Oh, the one and only. Sorry, transmission weak." "Kind. It is you." "John, listen. Something big happened. You need to disappear." Alina said hurriedly. What? John couldn't collect what was going on. John, hide someplace and we will come and find you. You can't attack Karthspire. Please don't come to the open. Oh, John was confused. Alina, what is going on? John asked, completely unaware of the chaos. John, listen. Alina's next words came across John's mind and made it numb. Something happened that none expected. It was too soon. John heard those words and couldn't help but take a deep breath, then sit down and try to organize his thoughts. They know? They're waiting? John felt his throat going dry. Goddamn. Now, of all the bloody times, a trap is waiting for me? This was ridiculous. There was not much he could do now but to walk right into another trap all over again. John felt the irony of fate. He got himself into this mess when he willingly walked into a trap, and now he needs to get himself out from it by walking in another trap. How fucked up it was. Alina's voice was sorrowful. She only said those words in the end. Run, John. Run. John felt the vines around his body squeezing on him tighter, as if a rope of powerlessness strangling around his neck. Now, as he is just this close from fixing everything, it can't just stop now. Joliner's life is on the line. Once he breaks from those shackles, he will be free and she will be saved. There was no way to walk down from this, even if all the world came between him and his target. Sorry, Alina. It is too late. Chapter 354, Chaos 2. I was never so happy writing a chapter in my life. I experienced what I will call a writing-gasm. Extra chapter. Every new, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. 2 days ago, solitude. High King Torg was still dealing with his massive headache. No matter if his medicinal herbs or healing spells, nothing was working at all. It all started since the day Thane John Dare of Winterhold disappeared. Nothing went down well after that day. Not only did some bad propaganda spread out about the High King and his men, but Thane Eriker was also bringing a pile of trouble to the court day by day. The problem with Eriker was his connections. For some reason, Eriker's family had the title of Thane for generations, and they always acted to the best interest of Solitude, even though they were a bit shady. Nonetheless, Eriker was the worst in line as far as Torg could tell. He was arrogant and didn't care about the colors of the world unless it was gold. Due to that, Eriker was the troublemaker of the hold, but none could deny his connections in the Imperial City. The good thing about those connections was how Eriker could get things done so fast, and the bad thing was how they used Eriker. Torg even heard some rumors about Eriker working with the Thalmor, but he knew that the rumors were a counterattack of John Dare. John Dare, the nationwide troublemaker of Skyrim. The Thane that took over Winterhold and threw his competitors in the sea without care for gods or laws. Thane John was sometimes too much, but was still necessary, and that's why Torg wanted to kick him back in line by letting Eriker and his connections pressure John and not allow him to spread out of Winterhold. It was all unwritten law. No force should grow bigger than what it should be under the kingdom of Skyrim and the empire of Cyrodiil. Still, John was gaining too much popularity and momentum. He spat in the eyes of the elves and reconstructed the city of Sarthal North to the Ancient One and called it Neo-Sarthal. A move so bold that it made Evernord want to crawl to Winterhold to witness the unearthed legacy of Isgramor and the First Men. Even Torg himself felt a lot of pride just by that. Still, it was the moment where John Dare needed to be stopped from gaining all that momentum, and Torg decided to harden his methods. Either let Eriker and Jarl Skald of Dawnstar pressure John to the extreme, or get John into the system by making him the Jarl. John refused the Jarlship, saying it limits his freedom, the very same thing Torg wanted to limit. In the eyes of Torg, John needed to be roughed up more, but there he couldn't foresee what is going to happen. John was completely bent on destroying Eriker when he came to Solitude, leading the two to get in a massive clash in the court. To top it all, Eriker made a dump move and targeted John's brother. Don't target a man's family. It was a sacred rule among men that Eriker cowardly broke, and it unleashed an angry dragon in the court. John performed a mighty shout that shook Solitude a whole and Torig's headache never ceased to stop since that day. Also, Erikr had to answer for his crimes. Yet all things got even worse by the end of the week. Thane John Dare was reported missing after he saved his brother in a reach. This may seem like the end of worries for Torig, as both the troublemakers John and Erikr were now suppressed, but the devil still found its way, and things went wrong in ways Torig couldn't even control anymore. Blaming himself for being a weak king was not completely wrong, but he still wanted to keep the peace even if his life was the price of it. Humans ripping each other apart was the last thing he wanted, but his actions led to it anyway. Torig was still holding his head on his throne, trying to sum up the chaos around Skyrim. When John Dare disappeared, the firemen closed their businesses in solitude, Falkreath and Whiterun withdrawing behind Winterhold, Riften, and Windhelm. This was a massive economic hit, as no one can replace the firemen in the span of the next 3 years. The Dare Dragon Company stopped its direct dealings with Solitude other than the East Empire Company and Whiterun's branch manager, John Battleborn, chased off all the traders from the new holds and started buying the necessary goods imported from the Empire and sold them to Winterhold directly, making a drastic rise in the prices in Solitude, Markarth, Mordhau, and Dawnstar. The economic attack was systematic and violent. The Dare Dragon Company was extremely rich that it could buy 2 more holds like Winterhold and still remain rich. This was not the end. Things in Windhelm and the old holds took another drastic change. For the last month, Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak climbed the statue of Talos in the Temple of Windhelm and gave a blood-boiling speech about John Dare and how the young dragon of Windhelm was brought down by a conspiracy of the Empire on the hands of the very savages that Ulfric Stormcloak fought for the sake of Skyrim many years ago. Before anyone could notice, John Dare was now the perfect martyr fueling the Stormcloak rebellion. A lot of rumors were spread around that Torig and the Empire were in cahoots regarding John Dare, and those rumors spread even in Solitude. Would the Empire try to quell the anger of the masses and solve things? Nope, those pig-headed corrupted people didn't. Count Pavo Adius, the ambassador, cooperate with Torig to try to solve the propaganda issues, but the very next day, an envoy of the Empire arrived with a word from the Imperial Guild of Commerce and released Erikr as a core employee in the guild and a person with diplomatic immunity. The Commerce Guild was an entity that valued speed and efficiency, just like how trading goes, so there was no time for Torig to even hold them down. They left with Erikr as fast as they came, and their direction was Winterhold. Torig pulled all the connections and strings he had around Winterhold, and the one who answered was Lady Vittoria Vici of the East Empire Company and the youngest cousin of Emperor Titus Mede to himself. She appeared in Winterhold, and rather than solving things, she completely sided with Winterhold and caused Erikr to get arrested and the guild to get kicked away as soon as they came. Now the Empire itself was offended, but they were at least manageable than the stone-headed Nords. Was fate nice to Torig afterward? Nope. 2 events happened in succession, causing the heads of Torig and his people to go numb for days and not even know how to handle the situation. John Dare appeared. He appeared in the flashiest way possible and is said to have annihilated a horde of Forsworn with nothing but his voice. It is said that his voice conjured the 4 great calamities of nature: the hurricane, the earthquake, the lightning storm, and the flood. How can anyone respond to that? John Dare is not just alive, but also kicking a bit too much at that. Torig and his men, who were being frowned upon by many Nords, were now out of the limelight. It was a piece of good news at last. However, Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak, who used John's death for his agenda, decided to tone it down and completely went off the grid. He has said many things he regrets, such as reviving the memory of Thane John Dare, and we are all John Dare. By that, he should be the first one to ride for John, yet actions and words couldn't be aligned in his case. The next event was the reaction of the Dare Dragon Company. According to the agreement between the heads of Skyrim on a side and the Firemans and the Moonblades on another, these forces were to secretly enter the Reach and search for John Dare. Figures like the Bloody Woman, Hilda, and the King of Ash, Jonrad, were sighted in the Reach. But once John was confirmed alive, the young figures in the Dare Dragons company couldn't stay put. Wolfer, the brother of John Dare, was the first to act and raided Dawnstar at night, kidnapping someone for Jarl Skald's people and destroying any ship coming from Dawnstar, completely besieging the port. The next one to move was the Lady of Winterhold, the Crimson Moon among the Moonblades, the Sibyl of Kine and the leader of her cult. She marched to the Reach on a militia of 400 Dare troopers riding flame Atronach horses. It was said that she was carrying a royal seal that dates back to Emperor Tiber, Septim himself, and she used it to go through any imperial fort with all the officers and soldiers kneeling to the seal of Emperor Talos. Winterhold was just a poor, empty hold a few years ago. No became the home of those remarkable young ones that can outshine anyone in their generation. Although John Dare was the leader of that young generation which took Skyrim by storm, neither Torrig nor anyone could see the irony of fate that struck them before they could just know it. The next thing that happened just now tilted every scale and debunked every theory about John Dare. It was a shock. This morning, Torrig woke up with a regular headache and sat on his throne after being treated by Sybil Stentor. Falk Firebeard, his steward, walked in the court, and it was just the three of them. The red-headed man was pale and staggering. Sybil Stentor cracked an undead joke about Falk, but the later completely ignored her. Torrig and Sybil noticed the strange thing about him. The man who normally carries piles of documents was carrying one paper. One small, tiny little paper. The same kind of paper that gets carried by the carrier pigeons. He silently handed the paper to Torrig with shaking hands. Torrig took the paper and read it. His rosy skin turned as pale as Falk, if not paler. Even Sybil the vampire felt cold when she read the letter. This scene repeated itself everywhere in Skyrim. Not just in Torrig's court, but also Ulfric's hall and the Thalmor ambassador, Elenwen's office. It spread like wildfire. The college's archmage, the companion's harbinger, the Empire's ambassador, the East Empire Company's outpost, every Jarl, every Thane, and every clan. The Blackbriars didn't care about the shipment that got raided that day. The Silverbloods didn't care about their helper Nepos that was massacred that day. The Shattershields about the ship that was destroyed that day. Everyone held to their letters, basking in the light on enlightenment. The secret of the eternal flame, the crack in the enigma, the glaze on the paradox. All of them thought John Dare was the brightest star of the young generation because of luck, connections, trickery? Nay, was it fate then? Was it destiny? Was it retribution? Or was it the name of John Hild Firemane gazing at their very souls from the papers they held? It was it. The name of the child that should have died 17 years ago in Riften beside that name of the child that appeared 3 years ago in also Riften. The lines were there connecting every dot, every truth, every fact, everything they desperately refused to believe. It was there. It was beauty. It was music. It was chaos. Chaos. Chapter 355, Chaos 3, John's Wrath. John barely smiled. There was no time for emotions anymore. It was time to get his act together. It was all too late anyway. Now the world knows it, so what? They still don't know any shit yet. Even if this meant that they will chase after him to the end of Nirn, just like how they did with his parents 17 years ago, he can now take care of it all. And also, he is ought to prevent it. How so? By making an example. Zykel, that's enough playing. John spoke. What mortal? I will. He said, shut up. Nefertiti popped out of John's shadow and then looked at John. Human, what will we do now? Nefertiti, in her little girl form, held John's hand and asked him. Don't worry, whatever it is, I have preparations. Actually, I have prepared for such a thing to happen, but now let's get fixed. Those people who chase my parents feared a child for no reason. Today, this child will give them a real reason to fear me. John's eyes turned cold as he pointed out the cube ring in his hand and took out something. A large figure appeared in front of him. It was none other than Odokuro, the skeletal samurai. Its appearance has changed greatly. It was not the crappy version that John created with haste in the Shivering Isles, but what appeared was something that John spent some time later on and refined it into a masterpiece-level undead. He even asked Wolfer to make a large iron katana for it, and it looked good. Still, there was one last piece in this. John recreated Odokuro's internal energy network to be more complex and created a new device to use a different power source rather than a simple Magicar reactor. It was the same device he looted from Solstheim when he found those undead, which are powered with heartstones. He modified it and created the Podomic reactor. John took out that Podomic reactor he has already created and removed the bones on the chest of Odokuro, then placed it as the heart. The last thing to the mix was John's own blood. It was a blood magic to bound Odokuro to himself by making a seal on the heartstone. And then Odokuro was powered up. Any undead should have blue eyes, but this was not the case. This was something new. These were red eyes. The power of the heartstone in the reactor was showing its effect splendidly. John nodded to himself and backed away from the red-eyed Odokuro. "Arise," John ordered. The 3-meter-tall bone samurai gripped on the large iron katana and stood up facing John. Master, unexpected to everyone, it spoke. "This is better than expected. Indeed, I am your master." John chuckled. John summoned up greed and looked at it. Since the very first time I met that shadow ether, I didn't understand it, so I conquered it with my energy until it submitted to me. Miraculously, something inside me understood it as greed. What is greed? It is the feeling of coveting material things. Greed covets materials and releases it from its bindings. That's its power. What about you, Odokuro? Do you know what you are? No, Odokuro shook its head. You will also be another sin. You will be the sin of wrath, Odokuro. John said. Wrath? Exactly, John said and directed his wrath at the Forsworn camp down the river. Karlspire was secured from every direction. Alaric and his men were ready for John whenever he comes. It has been a few days on this deathly wait. John was expected to come, and Alaric was sure of it. After all, he was the one who trapped John in the Briarheart tree, and the one who put a curse between John and the Briarheart tree. John may have freed himself, but Alaric could tell that the curse developed and prevented John from using magic, but not the Thursdam. It was vexing how he was reduced to this state. He had to hide the women and children away in the mountains just because of one man. On top of that, he had to cash in every favor he had to invite those 2 clans to fight beside him. What made him sure that John was going to strike soon was the news about Nepos the Nose. The man is said to have been butchered in his own house alongside a number of Reachmen. It was violent and scary, the same insignia of the murders around the Reach that John was behind. Alaric has already pulled back all the separate encampments to make a united stand against the tyranny of the Nord, and by that, those 2 allies showed up. Malvis Blackhorn, the chief of the Blackhorn Minotaur clan, a clan of colossal Minotaur creatures that came from Gerald Mountains and has an alliance with the Reachmen. The second unexpected ally was Vernon Windwalker, the chief of the Windwalker clan of centaurs. The Minotaurs and the centaurs are both natives of the Reach. The Minotaurs are some bulky masses of muscles with the heads and horns of bulls, all that standing on a towering height of 3 meters. They're considered half-humans. The centaurs are much lesser in size, but more mystic in comparison. Half-elves they are considered for their physique. These creatures stood on the height of a man on his horse. The appearance of those creatures gave some hope for Alaric, but soon that hope dissipated with the appearance of the cold flame on the horizon. The hill to the south where he left some scouts was now burning with blue, evil fires, something only heard in legends. "Is that him?" Malvis the Minotaur asked. "It should be," Alaric replied. "Cold flames. What have you done to make that man hate you this much?" Vernon the Centaur asked. "He is a Nord. I'm a Reach man." Alaric thought before replying. The Minotaur and the Centaur looked at each other, but their eyes averted away with dissatisfaction. It seemed the half-humans and the half-elves were only temporary allies in this. From the sides, another figure appeared. It was a Hagraven with a thick mass of black feathers around its body. The centaurs backed away from the foul creature, judging by their sensitive nature. "Elder Matron, what brings you here?" Alaric spoke with respect. "The Nord, my daughters killed and scattered the magic. His Fae is mine if he dares to come." The Hagraven was already speaking arrogantly about the loot. She wanted the black Fae that follows the Nord. Alaric's sole worry was survival, yet the matrons were already this greedy. Haven't they seen what happened when that Nord speaks the Thursdayam? If not for the ways of the Reach, Alaric would have killed all those hags for what they did to Grosh many years ago. Still, what they failed to notice was the D-word that the Elder Hagraven said, as if it was intentional to conjure the Nordman right away. Not even trying to hide, John was standing on the southern bridge leading to Karthspire. The Forsworn saw him really well, and they held their breath. Not just them. Many eyes on the sides, over the hilltops, and behind trees were watching the cursed child of the Firemans making his appearance at last. Those of them who couldn't hide their killing intent were already spotted by John and got one of his glares. Still, his main aim was the Elder Hagraven. Nefertiti told him how she and Wulfur were chased by the foul creature. Beside John, a dark figure appeared in a large black hood and cloak. It was holding a rope and dragging an old man tied from hands, feet, and neck. In John's hand, there were both Molag's mace and greed. The Elder Hagraven turned to John and was about to screech something with its voice or cast some magic. It mattered not. John was silently merging Molag's mace with greed, releasing a new appearance to the mace altogether. It was a spear, no, a harpoon. A long harpoon with a sharp edge and a long chain attached to it. John swung the Molag's harpoon once and twice before throwing it at the Elder Hagraven. It moved like lightning and hit its target in a beautiful arc, yet the Hagraven didn't die. It smirked at John while the harpoon was penetrating its body and was about to say something, but suddenly things changed. The purpose of the harpoon was not to kill, it was to hold the prey and drag it. And so was it. The prey was not the hag, but its soul. The Hagraven let out an agonizing scream that echoed everywhere as its soul was being dragged out of its body. No one foresaw such a thing was possible. John's harpoon was being pulled back by the chain, and a fully material soul was being dragged, screaming in agony. The world was frozen watching such a punishment unfold. As soon as the Hagraven soul was under John's feet, he cast a cold flame spell at it, and the soul shattered completely. Soul shattering. That is far worse than soul trapping, a process of annihilating the Enuic vessel in one's body, denying it the chance of any revival or reincarnation. This is how terrifying the essence draining cold flames was. The dead corpse of the Hagravens was a cold slap back to reality. The Forsworn remembered exactly who they are dealing with. Someone who walked out of a Briarheart tree. A person with a terrifying and bloody legend following him. Alaric knew this was the last showdown between him and that Nord. Only one of them is walking out of this alive. He raised Bloodskull high above his head and was about to give a hearty speech, but out of nowhere, a black shadow bounced over him, bit his hand and took Bloodskull, then ran towards John. Speechless, Alaric could only watch Bloodskull return to its rightful owner. John was here to make a statement, and that was complete domination. As his hand gripped Bloodskull, once again, the red sword shivered in happiness and its red aura started to appear. Alaric looked at the strange phenomenon and realized he never owned that sword in the first place. John stored the sword away and stepped forward with the harpoon, aiming it at Alaric. "No, you won't." Malvis the Minotaur stepped up with his clansmen carrying their tower shields. As the harpoon flew towards Alaric, Malvis stomped the ground and jumped in the air, swinging its large horn at the harpoon, deflecting it away. Seeing the Grim Reaper's scythe blockable, life returned to the faces of the Forsworn, but Alaric was still in a grim state. "Ha ha! Human, That's a weak attack. Malvis was happy with himself, making fun of the scary Nord that doesn't look so scary after all. He pointed at John and snorted. Men, get him! The Minotaurs stomped and snorted in unison. Their armors and military discipline were high, and their march was admirable. Don't lose to them, get that man. Even Vernon the Centaur aimed his bow at John, and aimed shouted. No, wait. Alaric wanted to stop them from doing anything rash. No one knows what words John will shout. As the Minotaurs and the Centaurs charged, John put on a smile. I didn't expect such mythical creatures to side with the Forsworn against me. In a normal day, I would have given them the choice of coming under my banner and serving me, but today I have to make an example. Blame your sorry luck. He stood unfazed as the two hordes charged at him. The Minotaurs were strong and fierce, while the Centaurs were fast and agile. The Centaurs entered the range first and shot a volley of arrows at John. With a hint of ridicule on his face, John pointed at the arrows and spoke. Wrath! Mestistar! Odakuro is here. The titanic-boned samurai appeared in a speed none could keep up with. Such a large creature and such speed were logic-defying. Odakuro waved its large iron katana at all the arrows, deflecting them away in a second. It used the same momentum to jump and charge at the centaurs, reducing the distance in a second. Wrath! Dai! Its rough voice and large shadow brought imminent crisis at the centaurs. With one swing of the large iron katana, bodies, limbs, heads, weapons, no matter what material it was made from, it was all torn apart. As large and heavy as it may seem, Odakuro was an assassin rather than a warrior. Fatal attacks, fast movements. From left and right, the sin of wrath, Odakur, brought death on the centaurs. Damn it, the one who could act at the time was the nearest ally, Malvis the Minotaur. It took a different path than leading his band of warriors, and jumped between the centaurs to engage directly with Odakuro, but it felt something was going wrong to his warriors. Just one glimpse at John was enough for Malvis to shudder in cold sweat. John was holding a staff with a very evil aura, as evil as the harpoon, if not even more. He couldn't understand what kind of staff would make him feel like that. What he failed to understand was that the threatening thing about that staff was not its nature or its origin, but its function. The staff carried a very chaotic force of nature that John was exploiting. It was none other than the Wabbajack. The Wabbajack is the artifact, if Shiagarath, for those who forgot about it. It could do anything randomly, mainly transforming enemies into different creatures. John was powering up the staff by only using the staff's energy and aimed it at the Minotaur horde. He then took out a living chicken from his haven ring and put it on his head. What are you doing? Nefertiti asked. Humiliating as it looks, I discovered a way to control the result of the Wabbajack. It is called fate magic, and it is not as fun as it seems. Keeping the chicken on his head, John took out a dagger and waved it fast, cutting the chicken's neck and letting its blood flow down on his head. Fate magic was mysterious. One needed to do certain actions for certain results to happen. There was no logical explanation or any guarantee things would work, but the fate magic was something like causing disturbance to reality, forcing it to take a path favorable to the magic practitioner. John kept the shaking and dying chicken on his head and focused on the staff only for its chaotic energy to settle. With that, John unleashed a wave of red light on the slow Minotaur horde. The red light enveloped all the horde in a second, cloaking its sight completely from the world. As the red light faded, the most bizarre situations unfolded. The Minotaurs were no longer there, but instead, there were many different creatures in their stead. Not as John clearly expected, they were not all chicken. There was a lot of chickens, but they were about 65% of the total number, but that within John's calculations. The 35% of remaining Minotaurs were in another sort of mess. Some turned to pigs, sheep, horses, baby mammoths, bugs. Some even got charred and some got healed, some got paralyzed, and some got transformed into mighty enemies like Draymora lords. Ahaha! John couldn't help but laugh as hard as he could. Only his laugh echoed in the reach, while everyone else turned silent. From the escaping centaurs to the forsworn to Malvis, the Minotaur leader to John Rad, and Tyr Firemane hiding in the hills nearby and watching to the spies and assassins that were anticipating John's appearance. None could see this one coming other than John. The mess in the ranks of the Minotaurs was epic. John raised his empty hands and evoked a large cold flame fireball with a big proton of the energy he gathered and threw it at the Minotaurs. Human, no. Malvis tried to stop John, but the Minotaur wasn't that fast. The spell was already cast. The fires ate every transformed Minotaur and barely anything survived. As they died, their bodies never reverted back to its original appearance. Those who survived could only run the other direction. Odokuro, who was still pouring wrath at the centaurs, got called back and stood beside John. Zyko raised the soul sigil stone and absorbed all the souls that were killed just now. Vernon, Alaric, and Malvis looked at John with hints of rage and terror. John stepped forward with the Molag's mace in hand and Bloodskull on the other. Qhuld Haas. Armor, might, health. His shout was called the Battle State Shout. A silver-plate armor of a knight enveloped him, and his physical power was puffed as much as his aura could buff him. And he stepped forward for battle. Chapter 356, Chaos 4, Blood Eagle. Sorry for not publishing yesterday. I was recharging my mentality and fixing my biological clock. Qhuld Haas. Instead of aura, John can use the Thursday which envelopes him with a silver gleaming spectral plate armor of a knight. In his hands was Molag's mace and Bloodskull, as well as Greed, which acting as a black cape over the silver armor. John extended his hand to Zyko. What? The sigil stone. Just don't damage it. Zyko handed John the soul sigil stone, and the latter held it tightly, then put the sigil stone on Odokuro and concentrated the energy on the staff stored in its spine. As the energy reached the staff, multiple summonses started to appear around. They were all Werethmen and Bone Men from the Soul Cairn. The mighty undead creatures, armored in bones and holding large weapons, formed a total of 300 warriors and archers. This amount of summons was scary. John never used his undead in public before, and he seemed to be going all out this time. Being watched or not, he is skilled in necromancy to the point of summoning up an army like that whenever he wanted was a piece of cake in his normal condition. Although the undead army was smaller than the united forces of the Forsworn, the centaurs and the minotaurs, the true essence of the undead laid in their endless stamina and non-existent emotions. The enemy was already rock bottom in terms of morale. This was a good sight to witness. John left the management of the troops to Odokuro and focused the sigil stone on himself, drawing a lot of energy to summon up a gigantic stereo speaker with bardic knowledge. He then handed the sigil stone back to Zyko and played the music. So, mortal, today we'll see your comeback? Zyko asked, looking forward to the slaughter. John smiled. Don't call it comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my peers, putting suckers in fear, making the tears rain down like a monsoon. Listen to the bass go boom. Huh? John smiled and pointed to the spectral speaker behind him. LL Cool J, Mama said knock you out. As the lyrics and music started to sound, John was already marching forward towards the Forsworn. Don't fear them. We stand together. We are stronger. Alaric shouted and rallied his force of almost 3,000 men, 10 times the number of the undead. On the other side, the music pumped up John and his undead, increasing their speed by 25%. The charge of the few against many was terrifying as the Forsworn were pushed back hard at the first clash. The undead horde wasn't normal. They charged like something out of the world, and when they clashed with Forsworn, they climbed each other and swarmed them like the tide. John was going forward on moderate speed. The mace in his hand would take a life each time it swings. Still, his eyes were glued on Alaric. I am coming for you. Gron Vuth Stad. Fine, stop, place. John's shout was prepared for this situation. It targeted no one other than Alaric, who was 50 meters away. Once it hit, it didn't break his bones or tear him apart. It only formed a barrier around him, making him unable to escape and no one able to come to his aid. Alaric was stranded. Protect the prince. Some brave Forsworn warriors rallied up around the barrier and tried to protect Alaric. No, run. Dismayed about his state, Alaric shouted for his men to leave him, but there was no time for them to even focus on him. John has already arrived with Odakuro and walked towards those warriors with a bloodthirsty smile. Bash, bash. Thud. Splash. John wasn't aiming for the kill with those warriors. Actually, he recognized them very well. These are Alaric's gang, who paid him many visits when he was captured and took turns on torturing him. He broke their limbs in front of Alaric's eyes and mutilated their bodies alive. Fazausag. Pain, suffer, burn. He even used the agony shout, paying them a special service of pain and suffer. They twitched on the ground and quivered, trying to escape the torture. John made them say things they would never say in their lives, just to escape the pain. The concept of torture in the dragon tongue carried a horrifying meaning that John perfected in the Reach. Compared to the time when John used the shout on Eriker, the effects then and now are a world apart. Their minds, wills, and self-worth broke. Killing them won't bring joy anymore, so John left them to die under the march of his undead. He looked at the ashen-faced Alaric and grinned. Don't worry, I won't use that one on you, Blood Eagle. I have something special just for you. Hee hee hee. The Forsworn horde retreated, forsaking Alaric, as it seemed he is safe for the time being. The music filled the world, and John was dancing with his head as he went forward to kill more Forsworn. His labor and deal with Molag depended on that. The more he killed, the more power he got, but he directed it all to Odakuro, who was the real summoner of the undead army. Gah, I'll kill you. A figure charged at John with strong momentum. It was Malvis Blackhorn, the leader of the Minotaurs. Malvis was aiming its horns at John's vitals, but John was aware and avoided by a hair's width, then clashed with Malvis in hand-to-hand combat. A human versus a Minotaur in a melee fight was very unadvisable in some cases, but John and Malvis locked hands together, and their foreheads clashed. John avoided the horns of Malvis desperately, but the Minotaur possessed the weight advantage. John's muscles enlarged and showcased his true physical might, pushing back the Minotaur alone. I'm impossible. Nothing is. John gained himself some hard-earned space and switched from wrestling to boxing and kicking. Not even a Minotaur was an exception when it comes to fighting with John in such close quarters. John punched out 2 jabs followed by a right hook, a kick pushing the knee backward, and an uppercut. Malvis tried to use his large arm only to get his legs kicked again. Then a storm of kicks and punches came down as John went wild. Realizing that John was not good at wrestling and preferred brawling, Malvis threw its body at John, pinning him down. Realizing that his advantage was facing a crisis, John used Malvis's momentum and took him down with a backflip slam. He hurriedly took out Molag's mace and intended to finish Malvis, but the latter was too nasty and held the head of the mace before it crushes him. John thought fast, then twisted the mace and called out Greed to transform it into the harpoon form. The harpoon was easier to control, and it went through Malvis's chest. John tried to grab out the soul, but Malvis was not dying yet. John stood and pulled Malvis up by the harpoon. The latter was extremely focusing and tried to fight off his soul, being dragged out from his body by the harpoon. John used that to force the Minotaur to kneel, then came behind him, then took out a fancy dagger. It was Maroon's razor. John and Malvis were both facing Alaric, who was watching from his cage. John simply put the dagger on Malvis's neck and slew him while grinning at Alaric. His eyes were gleaming viciously as Alaric saw his ally get killed like that. He fell on his knees, and a desperate look appeared on his face. Exactly what John wanted to see. "Huh!" A war cry sounded as 6 arrows flew towards John from the back. The leader of the Centaur clan, Vernon Windwalker, was charging towards John alone. He was surely pained to see his people die under the blade of Odokuro. John dodged 4 arrows, and the remaining 2 were deflected by the armor, leaving some traces on the magical fabrication. John knew that this Vernon is a good archer and needed to be dealt with. The problem is that Centaur was insanely fast, maybe as fast as Nefertiti. Haha, do you think I didn't come ready? Nel Vin Qo. Fast, wind, lightning. This shout was another self-enhancement shout, just like Battle Aspect, that envelopes John with silver spectral armor. This shout is called Flash, and it was incredible. As John was enveloped by silver armor, he was also enveloped by a storm aura. Just as he moved, he was so fast to the point that he was waiting for Vernon already ahead of him. Caught you. John still had the harpoon in his hand, and he stabbed at Vernon. The harpoon went through the centaur's abdomen and pierced through the muscles, but the most terrifying thing was how Vernon felt his soul being dragged out of him. He held tightly to the harpoon, just like how Malvis did. Noticing the large shadow approaching from behind, Vernon could tell that Odokuro was right behind him, and slash. One slash by the iron katana sent Vernon's head to Alaric's feet. Now the 2 heroes that came to aid him were having a first-class trip to Cold Harbor. John couldn't take enough from the expression on Alaric's face. He approached the barrier he made around Alaric, and his hands went through it. So, how does it feel being this helpless? John asked. As it seemed, Alaric's soul has already escaped his body just by looking at his eyes. John still wanted to save him for last, but the situation needed to make a fast example. Just as he was about to grab Alaric, an arrow broke through space and arrived at John, seeking his life. John recognized the power behind the arrow and knew he can't face it with his weakened state. He hurriedly jumped to the other side. The arrow landed on the barrier, and ripples of energy appeared on it, causing it to break like glass. As there was no more barrier, Alaric was free once again. Motherfucker! John couldn't afford Alaric escaping, so he stabbed a spear in Alaric's knee, pinning him on the ground. John then turned around and shouted, "Who dares?" Someone from the sidelines tried to interrupt his fun time with Alaric. That surely was a grave sin. Not willing to answer, for more arrows targeted John viciously. They all were aimed at his legs, heart, and head. Under the effect of the flash shout, John moved away with ease, dodging every arrow. This assassin was annoying him to oblivion. Damn it, get him! The assassin seemed to have given up on shooting down John and ordered his partners to move. John felt 4 auras, but they were all too stealthy. Without his real magic and aura, he was in danger, but humph! Ignorant fools. Lasya nir. Life, seek, hunt. John used the aura whisper, a Thursdayum that is not a shout but a whisper. His eyes could tell where the 4 assassins are right away. Without further ado, John was already striking those assassins first. He kicked a large stone like a soccer ball, and it hit a mage among them that was about to cast a spell that felt dangerous. The other 3 moved at the same time when they realized that John found them out. A red guard with twin curved swords, a wood elf with a bow, and an imperial with a spear. John was cornered in a split of a second, but he was already aware of their movements. A spear thrust to the neck, an arrow to the head, and the twin swords to the legs. John jumped with a flip, rotating horizontally in the air. The spear and arrow passed above him, and the twin swords passed beneath him. As his face faced the ground, John let out another shout. Fusaroda, force, balance, push. The shout was aimed at the ground, but once the force wave struck the land, it turned all around and moved like a circular shockwave. The 3 assassins were struck down before they know it, and John was already counterattacking. As soon as his feet landed on the ground, John charged at the spear wielder and used Maroon's razor to one-hit kill the Imperial. Odokuro snuck like a snake, and his katana pierced the wood elf archer, killing him right away. The 3rd assassin recovered and charged at John. John knew better than to turn around and face that man. He started running the other direction, and the red guard chased him. Before any could tell, a katana slashed down at the red guard, causing him to retreat. It was not Odakuro, it was Jonrad. Jon turned around, frozen by the sight of his father, and Jonrad looked at Jon with a heartbroken face. His son was in front of him, but both his mental and physical condition were unsightly. His body was clearly weakened, and half of it was pale like a draugr. On top of that, Jon was turning into a murdering demon that sought out destruction in a grim fashion. Alina told you not to show up. Was any of this necessary? Jonrad scolded. I have to, Jon said. Then get done with it. If you can't prevent your loved ones from committing an error, help them get out of it the right way. Now the King of Ash, Jonrad Firemane, and his brother-in-law, Tyr Firemane, joined the fray. King of Ash, the Red Guard assassin, seemed to have recognized Jonrad. Ghazi of Tanith, I'll kill your son like you killed my father. Get over it. That was 18 years ago. Jonrad waved his flaming katana at the Red Guard and clashed with him in combat. Sure of Jonrad's easy win, Jon turned around to look for Alaric. Sure enough, he was being dragged away by the Forsworn. No, you won't. Jon moved towards Alaric as a flash of lightning. Many third parties tried to make a move on Jon as he ran this fast. All of them were assassins and enemies of the Firemane clan who rushed to kill Jon once again. Jon could fend off most of them, as none was as dangerous as Ghazi of Tanith. The ones who Jon left were not merely left, but his wrath, Odakuro, was claiming them with nimble moves stealthily while they are focused on Jon. As he approached Alaric, Jon felt a portion of his foot that was supported by greed lose power. It meant he was running low on sense energy. He immediately took out Molag's mace and swung it at a dying Forsworn near him to get his soul and essence. Jon almost froze for a second, feeling some déjà vu, but that was not the time of days. He looked at Alaric and chased him right away. The Forsworn were already retreating on the high ground while being covered by a band of hags that kept casting magic at Jon's undead. The number of the 300 undead was significantly reduced to 100, and they were no longer effective. Jon wanted to summon more, but more allies appeared. Boo! It was a horn, his horn, the company's horn. Jon looked toward the sound to see the Dare troopers sweeping the battlefield on flame Atronach horses. It was a glorious charge. The hags were all being hunted by the lever-action crossbows, and the Forsworn fell like flies, retreating to a cave at the end of Karthspire and fortified the entrance. Alaric was desperately crawling away from Jon, but the latter merged greed and Molag's mace. Once again, then threw the harpoon at Alaric's calf, pinning him down for good. The harpoon stab was a death sentence. It meant that whenever it gets out, it will snare the soul with it. Alaric could tell. This was his end. He closed his eyes and accepted in calmly, but a shadow and a hand grabbed him from his hair. Not so fast. Jon won't let him die just like that. 2 Daedric princes ordered your demise. Azure wanted you dead so that I removed the curse you put on me, and Molag Bal wants you tortured and soul shriven. And honestly, I will enjoy it. Jon took out 4 large logs of wood and pinned them together on the ground with nothing but his brute force. The fight was already over, and he was at the center of the attention. Alaric got pulled up once again, and Jon took out some nails and a hammer. He put Alaric's hands on the logs and nailed them. Alaric screamed from pain, but it was not the end. His other hand was nailed to another log. Zykel, come. Jon called for the Dremora, who came dragging a person who had a sack on his head. Jon took that person and nailed him to the other 2 logs as he did to Alaric, but the man didn't even let out a groan. Both men were positioned facing the cave the Forsworn retreated in. Of course, the Forsworn are watching everything. Behold, this is your prince you ever so proud about, the one you call Blood Eagle. Jon presented Alaric. And this. Jon walked to the other man and pulled away the sack on his head. This is your king. This is Madanach. Jon's voice descended like cold water on everyone. Of course, Madanach was known as the last Reachman king, who was supposedly dead to many. Even Alaric was looking at Madanak with hollow expressions. "Let's not delay this any further," John said as he took a dagger from Zykel. "Blood Eagle," John called Alaric. "In my past life, we also knew something called the Blood Eagle. It was something I always wanted to perform on you since day one. Lucky you." John smiled as he put the knife on Alaric. "This was going to get bloody." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.